I'll ask the administrator to take the roll.
Trustee Cawthorn.
Here.
O'Brien Berglund.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
President Larson.
Here.
Trustee Thomas.
Here.
Wellen.
Here.
Zappa.
Here.
All present.
Chair would entertain a motion to review and approve the minutes from the regular board meeting of February 6, 2007.
I'll move to approve the board minutes from the regular board meeting of February 6, 2007.
Second.
Any comments or corrections to the minutes? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay. Comments from the floor on issues not related to what's on the agenda. Okay, that's an open opportunity. Okay. All right. Let's see, public hearing. Chair would entertain a motion to open the public hearing regarding the rezoning request by Dean Hansen for lot 105, Summers Landing, 6th edition, Highway 35 North. Hi, Tom.
I'll make that motion. Can I add something to it?
Sure. Well,
Could we, or maybe we'll just do it first? What I would like to do is make a motion to limit the opportunity.
I'll deal with that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
We just need a motion and a second just to open the
Okay.
open the public hearing. Okay. So we have the motion. Is there a second?
I would second it.
Second. Okay. Okay. So we are now in public hearing. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate that. It is unusual to have two public hearings on the same subject within the same short, brief period of time. The reason we're having one is for the very simple reason that Dean Hansen, as well as his legal counsel, Bill Rosevich, had originally requested that we have a public hearing not only at the Plan Commission meeting, but also at the board meeting. And so that's my decision as a village president as well, not to include that kind of an item on the agenda, and I elected to put it on the agenda. I was like, when you have important issues, I think it's important to give people as much opportunity as possible, both ways to talk about it. So as we are accustomed to doing for public hearings, particularly ones where you anticipate a lot of people will be wanting to voice their comments, the person who's making the request, in this case Dean Hansen or Bill, they will have the first opportunity to explain what it is, what are they requesting, why are they doing it, okay? And in case anyone is not familiar with what the request is, it is a request to rezone a particular lot, which I think everybody knows where it is, from a C2 to a C3 to establish needed general shopping and related neighborhood commercial uses on the subject property, which could include shopping, could include groceries, could include anything that would fall under the definition of a C3. Okay, so that is the specific request, and that's the issue that's in front of the board. Okay. Now, once Dean and/or Bill have finished their comments, do you have any other individuals from Nash Finch or anybody else, or Econo Foods or anybody?
Bill would like to speak first, and I'd like to speak last.
That's fine. That's up to you. That's fine. That's not.
No other individuals.
Okay. Yeah, if you've got cell phones, just turn them off. It's just kind of a distraction. And then, as our standard practice is, if somebody wants to speak for the motion, then somebody just raise your hand, come up to the mic, identify yourself, just state Larry Larson, 311 blankety blank street. Okay. Then we do somebody who wants to speak in opposition. So we do for, against, for, against, for, against. Okay. If you want to speak, that's fine. If you don't want to, you don't have to. It's entirely up to you. Okay. And we ask that people just be respectful of each other collectively, both primarily on account of time. If we have 25, 30, 40 people talking, try to limit it to approximately a couple of minutes. All right. But we don't put a hard and fast deadline on that. Okay. If I think you're getting too windy, I may ask you to try to shut it down quickly. Okay. because we don't want to cut people off. All right, with that, Bill, you're going to go first?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. My name is Bill Radosevich. I'm here on behalf of Dean Hansen, who has proposed a shopping center, grocery store in property in the village along State Trunk Highway 35 across from Mama Maria's. This has been before the Plan Commission, and as your minutes will reflect, the Plan Commission declined to pass a favorable recommendation. I want to spend a little time talking about that and in terms of how that recommendation fits into what you have before you here this evening. And I first want to thank the Plan Commission members because they, as all Plan Commission boards do, spend a lot of time and work and take their review seriously. The request is to change the zoning from C2, which is limited commercial, to general commercial, which is C3. And at the Plan Commission member, and I hope everybody had a chance at least to review in detail the minutes, but also perhaps if you had not watched it live to have looked at the video of this. And so the request is to, again, go to the limited commercial. From limited commercial to general commercial. That would allow a grocery store. The site is a little over 2 acres, and Mr. Hansen, I think, listening to the residents, rather than construct a building that for multiple uses, heard the voices of the people here that said, we want a grocery store. And that's why he's here this evening, to fulfill that need. Now, the Plan Commission, when we look at that decision, and sometimes boards would like to say, well, the Plan Commission looked at it, we're going to adopt the Plan Commission recommendation. And if you look at those minutes, you will notice there was some colloquy between the administrator and some of the board's member that if you're going to vote no, you have to give the reasons. And the suggestion was that it was for the benefit of the developer. If he were to come back again, what were those objections of the board members? But the key thing, and why I believe your legal counsel said, give a reason, that's for if there were a reviewing court down the road somewhere, the threshold requirement is, does the decision reflect what the board heard? Is there a rational basis for the decision? And if that is lacking, then I think that recommendation falls by the wayside, and you must make your own decision. Now, when we look at some of the reasons that the Plan Commission had given, one Plan Commission member said, well, our comprehensive plan and our thought process in that was to have, everybody was in favor of the concept of having a grocery store, but the suggestion was that is a single function. Therefore, I'm going to vote against it because I think this commercial land, wherever we have it, should be multiple functions. And that's not a grocery store. But the other day, as I was going through County Market, and you walk in the front door, and off to your left, if you want to drop your laundry off, you can. If you want to get your shoes fixed, you can. You go to the right, and what do you have? But you've got a florist shop, and you can, bring your wife home flowers. You go to the other side, and there's a deli, a sit-down place for have a meal like a restaurant. Go a little further, and you got a bakery, a full bakery. Go a little further, and you got the meat market, seafood, what used to be the old butcher shop, and even a couple of others. And you got the farmer's market with the fresh fruits and vegetables. You got a pharmacy, you got a post office, and you have a bank. And we call that a grocery store. But think, we got about 10 or 12 different functions, all located in that one County Market, our grocery store up on the hill. And I'm not suggesting that all of those functions could be in this building, because obviously it's not large enough for that. But I think we have the opportunity to put in a nice-sized store that will meet our basic needs. We might not have a post office there, although it would be nice to have some postal facilities. Now, we got a bank across the street, so we don't need a bank. But when when this board member looks, or plan commission member, and says, we want multiple functions, I mean, this is an opportunity other than just canned goods. You know, a grocery store, as that it works itself way through, will provide some of those functions. Another board member thought, you know, a grocery store in the village is nice, that she'd like a little Kowalski's. Well, Kowalski's isn't here, and Kowalski's are big stores. And we think this is not in the large store frame, but it's a small store. It's not a Kowalski, but it would be nice to have a Kowalski's. But this board member also was in favor of having the grocery store. Another plan commission member, and bless her heart, she went out, walking her dog, talked to 25, 30 different residents in the village. Every one of those residents says, I am in favor of this grocery store. I'm in favor of it. She wants a grocery store. She voted against it. So what she found out when she hit the street was not reflected in the vote. And she has the right to do that, but it's not a vote that buttresses her own findings. And really, she was looking at the concept. So I'm not, that's the building. I don't want that building. I want something different. But that's not the issue. We are dealing with usage here this evening. And from the chairman, there was some discussion that there's a limit on the number of times that you can rezone a piece of property. And it was brought out that this property at one time had been zoned conservancy, and then it was zoned to the C2, and that was okay, but now we can't go to that third rezoning to a C3. But when we look at the history of that property, and also the St. Croix Station property and the property south of St. Croix Station, all of that property at one time was zoned conservancy. All of St. Croix Station and the property to the south, that subdivision, was zoned conservancy. Why? I think it was used as a holding zone, not knowing what's going to go there, zone it the lowest or most restrictive, and then do the rezonings as the change of use comes about. Frequently, communities will, on annexation, bring property in at single family, and then depending upon the development, zone it to something other. So that was kind of an artificial rule that you can't do it 3 times. That falls, one, as a matter of law, but secondly, the practice here was conservancy as the holding zone. And that person, too, they were sure. You know, what we had was, among the board members, I don't think anybody was against a grocery store. But for whatever reason, this site wasn't looked upon favorably. But then we've got to look, and there were some comments like, you know, another site, or maybe we'll develop property. I know of no plans in the village going out and building a shopping mall someplace. Now, drive north, and you're into some hills along the road already, and you're into development in the township that would block any such thing. So the suggestion that, well, let's wait a year or two and somebody north of town is going to build us something doesn't face reality. It just simply doesn't. No one has come forth and said, if not here, here's the other location. This is the location. This is what we have left, folks. And we're fortunate to have a parcel of 2 acres that's located on a state trunk highway to serve the purpose that 80% of the people in this community expressed the need to have a grocery store. And I would challenge that if anyone on this board thinks that 80% of the people are against this project, you can put it on a referendum, and I think it'd probably be a 90% vote in favor of this project. And I think ultimately the project stands or falls on its own merit, and we think you have a nice design, and this is the early part of the process. There are some concerns about, well, how will the lights be? You know, that's something with the engineer With Mr. Hansen's engineer, he come up with a lighting plan that is as unobtrusive as possible in terms of lighting adjoining, residential areas. Same way with what's the road access going to be, entrances, exits. That's what we have the traffic engineers for. This case being on State Trunk Highway 35. That will be your engineers, the state engineers to work out those details. The ultimate design, Mr. Hansen is obviously open, I believe, to the village input, both from this board, the Plan Commission, and citizens, so that this is a project that when it's all done, everyone can be proud of. And he welcomes that opportunity to solicit your ideas and concepts. And I know the Plan Commission is working on some design standards or is looking at that concept. So we're at that early stage in that. But the decision tonight is what should this property be zoned? We're here in support of our petition to rezone it to the Class 3 general commercial, which is what we think it really should be. This building that he has is buildable today in the Class 2 without any change in zoning. I think everybody understands that this building could be built, he could, with the building permit, without any change of zoning, start building tomorrow, provided with, everything else in order. But he's listened to the people, and he said they want a grocery store, so that's why he is here this evening asking for the change to a Class C3 so that a grocery store can be had. Thank you.
Okay. Dean, you want to say something?
Last, if I can, I'll let everyone else go first. I'd like to talk last.
Okay. There are a couple of chairs up here, and there's one over here in case anybody's interested. Okay. All right. Were you going to talk about the project at all?
I will last if I could. I'd like to do that after everyone else has completed their comments.
Okay.
If I
All
can
right.
do that.
All right. Let's see. We usually do for and then against, just alternating. If anybody would like to do that, don't have to. If anybody would like to speak for, in support of, and the motions are always made in the favor, in the affirmative, which is to be in favor of the motion to change it from a C2 to a C3. So when I say in favor of, that means in support of the pending motion. Would someone like to speak? Yes? Go ahead. And again, just briefly state your name, your address, and then your comments.
I'm Terry Rowan. I live at 603 Cedar Drive, North Hudson. Bill touched on some of, a lot of the points I think that were germane to why a lot of people are here, which is the need for a grocery store, at least a perceived need by 80% of the people, that we do want one here. One of the things that I guess an issue that I have, and it doesn't necessarily relate to this issue, but you sent out a survey a year ago. I filled it out. Even though there was like 75 questions, went through it. Question 31 on the economic, I think it was called economic section, asked about a grocery store. When I looked up the results in the website, on the village website, I was really surprised to see that overall demographic groups, 80% was the average, and yet this board did not take my input and the rest of the citizens' input, at least seemingly so, into your vote. And the issue that I have is...
The board has not voted yet.
Was the Plan Commission,
Plan
sorry. Take the citizens' input into account, which is basically your constituency that says, hey, 80% of us would like this, yet we only had 1 out of 6 people vote in favor. And I guess my major issue is, if you're asking for input, please give it the respect and the attention it deserves. Otherwise, why ask for input if you're going to vote against the wishes of 80% of the population? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we don't do applause during the meeting.
Not that I minded it.
Okay. Okay, I know it's your whole family, Terry, but. All right. Opposed? Oh, all right.
My name is Dean Agan, and I'm out at 552 Summers Landing Road North. I guess I'd been a little hesitant to step to the microphone before this evening, having known Dean for about 25 or 30 years, and Bill, I guess I've known you for a good number as well. I just wanted to speak for a moment about some of the things that certainly we've heard Bill talk about and that we've seen published in the paper as well. And maybe the first, for the sake of this evening, is that the thought that that structure could be built in a C2 zone doesn't seem to relate to a copy from the book right here at the village that talks about the fact that a C2 zoning is intended to be in harmony with existing future and or existing residential uses and or those adjacent to within 1,000 feet of such a district. Somehow that doesn't seem to be, completely in harmony with housing. The second is that under all of the commercial districts and their classifications, there are some notes within the village ordinances, as we understand them, that talk about unreasonable issues like noise and light and smoke and traffic and air and water pollution, which could create a public or private nuisance, seem to be somewhat concerning. And again, I mean no disrespect to the thought of what development is all about, and certainly can appreciate what this board, as well as all of the other boards, have to endure as they see or continue to entertain thoughts of development. But it just doesn't appear as of today that the greatest and best use of that real estate is truly been thought out. Thank you.
Would someone else like to speak? Go ahead.
My name is Dick O'Connor. I live at 126 7th Street North. My wife and I, Judy and I do. And I think I've talked to most of you by phone already. I might have missed one or two, I don't know. But anyway, I just want to reiterate that Judy and I do support the idea of a grocery store in the village of North Hudson. And all I want to do at this point is to ask this board and or the plan commission to make this happen, whatever it takes. If it takes a C3, do it. Thank you.
Okay. Others on the other side of the coin?
My name is Barb Coffey. I live at 560 Summers Landing Road North. Not sure. I was somewhat spurred by the article in the Hudson paper this week, and I wrote a letter to the village board. Not sure whether or not you received it. First of all, I first want to state that the question isn't that we're arguing here isn't whether or not we want a grocery store. It's whether we want a grocery store in that space. It happens to be in my backyard. I'm wondering if anybody here that are asking for a grocery store, if it were being built in their backyard, if they would be here supporting that's where they want to put it. If I could, I'd like to read this letter that I sent. Like I said, I'm not sure if you got it. We're writing to ask you to consider carefully your vote on the rezoning of Lot 5 in Summers Landing from C2 to C3. As Dean Hanson, the developer, would like you to have the village and surrounding area believe that we are all against a grocery store in the village. This is not the issue. The issue is the rezoning of a lot to a major commercial property that is bordered on 3 sides by residential property and whether or not the building he is proposing fits into that space. Would we like a grocery store for our convenience? Sure we would, but at what cost? Here are some things to consider. This is not an area where people can easily walk to or bike to, so people would still drive there. It's on Highway 35, and most people are still driving 45 miles an hour by the time they get to Mama Maria's, much less slow down at that intersection of Station Lane and 35. The type of building that Mr. Hansen is considering building was not the vision that most people had in mind when thinking about a market grocery store for North Hudson. Most people were thinking of a small town market. And as I was talking to my mother, who has lived in the area for 50 years, there used to be a grocery store in North Hudson. So it's not here now, so obviously something didn't support it at that time. The closing of Econo Foods in downtown Hudson does not tell us that a grocery store in North Hudson would work. Who would support it on a daily basis? If it can't compete with County Market or Cub, we will be left with a vacant building. There are also many environmental concerns about paving that land where the runoff of gas and oil from vehicles would go. The way the drainage is set up right now, it would run right into the St. Croix River. The people that live in this area has purchased their homes, a life-changing purchase, having the knowledge that this lot was zoned C2, and as you would expect, they wanted to stay that way. There are some people that live there that the lot was zoned Conservancy when they moved in, so it's already changed for them. Also, Mr. Hansen knew that this was zoned C2 when he purchased the lot. We don't think it's right of him to expect it to be changed because he thinks this is best for North Hudson. He's not even a North Hudson resident. I've lived in Hudson area all my life. My husband and I have lived in North Hudson for 2.5 years. I've seen a lot of changes in respect to retail progress and convenience, but at some point we have to say enough is enough. We have many retail outlets for our convenience in as little as 4 or 5 miles. Are we expected to have a Cub, Target, Menards, Walmart, etc. on every corner? If people want to be close to those, then they need to choose to live closer to them. For those of us who can go a few miles for the peace and quiet and security in our neighborhood, we ask that you vote to keep Lot 5 in Summers Landing zoned as C2, and even then take into deep consideration what fits in harmony with the area surrounding the lot and what best suits the area and the village of North Hudson. Many people at the February 21st meeting of the Planning Commission talked about one of their reasons for moving to North Hudson was to be a little ways away from the hustle and bustle. Others took that as these people not being very community-minded. But because someone prefers wildlife in their backyard as opposed to a grocery store doesn't mean that they have no sense of community. One other point made was that we have seniors in North Hudson that would like the convenience of a grocery store. My thought is that if we know seniors that need help getting groceries, then we should be there to help them. That's what builds community. We thank you for... We thank you for all the work that you do to help the village of North Hudson be a friendly, welcoming place to live. We also thank you for your thoughtful and careful consideration to this matter. You know, I just don't think that, I can't say that would we like a grocery store, but just because this is the only lot we can put something on, that those of us in the 3 surrounding areas should be just said, tough, put up with it. I've been told just move. Well, my property value is going to go down and you put a grocery store in there. Oh, yes, it will.
Okay. Pros. Pro? Go ahead. Okay.
My name is Steve
Okay.
Close.
We're going to treat everybody with respect in here. That's the way we operate. Okay.
My name is Steve Close. I live at 644 Cherry Circle North. I'm here for the amendment to make a grocery store. I grew up in a small town called Roberts. I don't know if you know it. It's about the third the size of North Hudson right now. When I was growing up, it was exit 10. 610 people there when I was growing up.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Will you repeat your name?
My name is Steve Close.
Close.
We had a grocery store in the downtown, in the main street of that town, even though it didn't have a major highway going through it. It was surrounded in 2 sides by residential housing, and I didn't see anyone. That was not a big issue. As far as I know, I grew up with both the people. I went to school with one of the people that lived in one house, and the other one's a fisherman friend of mine. and neither of them seemed to complain about the grocery store. Didn't drive down their house. You couldn't see the grocery store from their house, in front of their house anyway. I just want to say that growing up in Roberts, we had a few blocks to walk up to the grocery store. I think this central site is the right site for a grocery store because it is as close to walkable for everyone. It's in the center. It's as close to center as we're going to get at this point. If you build one out, we push out further north. We're looking at building a big box that everyone drives to, I think. I think that's maybe the last chance to get one that we walk to. A couple points brought up. Who's going to use it? We're going to. My wife and I are going to probably use it on every other day, I would guess. It's a long drive with 3 young kids to go up to County Market. Econo Foods wasn't so bad, but County Market's just a lot farther to go when you got a 1 and a 2-year-old in the car screaming at you on the way. I think the neighborhood grocery store would really help out with that. I think I miss having a grocery store from where I used to grow up, and I think it would be nice to have this community have one. I think it would be better than putting a bar there or putting other businesses there. I think it's a good community-oriented business.
Okay, thank you. Others opposed to the motion, or impending motion, I'll call it? Yes. I think you started up three times. You got cut off.
Thank you. My name is, Steve Dunker. I live at 345 Station Lane. I am obviously definitely against this whole position of a grocery store, or even, and more importantly, converting it to C3. I moved here 2 years ago. I've said this every time we've had these open sessions, and I appreciate the opportunity to say it once again, or whatever it takes. We moved here with the contingency that that property was a C2, knowing full well that that's what it was going to, that it was a C2 type facility was going to be moving there. That was a contingency. I think it is wrong to make that kind of change, especially after it's been at a conservancy at one time before, now switching it to C2 and now switching it to C3. I think that's very unfair to the people who made purchases of the property all around that area. Now back to the survey. The survey was for a grocery store. The survey was not for that specific lot. I think we need to make that clarification. Obviously, it keeps coming up again, but the survey did not have anything to do with that specific lot, and I think that's very important in this situation. If you go around to most of these communities, I think if the Roberts situation, if 2 sides, I think is even very poor for consideration of having residential around a C3 type property. But in this case, with 3 sides of it, I think that's unfair and unrealistic. They maintain the bedroom community that we've all been, that's why we moved here, and that's what we want to maintain. And that I think it's entirely to the disadvantage of all those that are involved, just to have a convenience within having a grocery store within a few miles. Since we do have that grocery store. I've taken pictures, I've showed them at the Planning Commission, and you're certainly welcome to keep these. This is Econo Foods in our area. This is the back of the stores, and we already have in our area here. It's got pallets packed up, it's got racks, it's got grocery carts. It's a mess, and understand that's why they don't put grocery stores in the middle of residential areas. That's the nature of the beast. You don't put a square peg in a round hole. And I think it's unfair and to even consider doing all this, and I would appreciate you take the advantage or take into consideration the Planning Commission's well thought out decision, even though they wanted grocery stores, and we heard that from many of them, but this is not the place to put it. And moving it to a C3 is just the same thing. Here's the back of Mama Maria's. Again, not a situation where I would want that, or anybody would want that to have that, anybody have that in their neighborhood. And whereas you have a C2 facility such as the Bardell building, or even the bank, you walk around that, that's very clean, much more residential and much more community-minded type of thing. Let's not force an issue just because somebody wants the convenience of a grocery store. That's wrong, and it's unfair to those that have to live through it. Doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Where am I? Others in favor? Go ahead.
Hello, my name's Cliff Bonneau. I live at 723 Deer Path with my wife, Linda. We're longtime North Hudson residents. We've been on it for a long time. And I'm really in favor of the grocery store. Ever since Econo Food shut down, we got to go up on the hill. It's a big inconvenience, and we've been looking forward to that kind of development ever since we moved in. And yes, I would not mind having a grocery store right behind me. I mean, for me, it's not a big deal. Maybe for some people it is, but I don't think it's a big deal, and I definitely am in favor of the changing of the zoning to C3. Thank you.
Opposed?
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. Tim Higgins, 355 Station Lane. As Mr. Hansen's lawyer so eloquently spoke earlier, sounds like County Market, Econo Foods, and Aldi supply all the needs for the community, not only of Hudson, but of North Hudson. Seems that they supply all the little things that everyone's looking for in a store. I urge the board to vote against this rezoning for several reasons. Noise pollution, air pollution, light pollution, traffic hazard, environmental hazard. Please give the respect to the village and its tranquility and vote against this rezoning. Thank you.
Pro? In favor of?
I'm John Porter, 1118 Partridge Lane. First of all, I'd like to compliment you all. We moved to North Hudson about a year and a half ago, and the governance here is very good because it's a wonderful community and we enjoy living here. As we've heard both sides, I am in favor of a grocery store in our community, partially for the convenience, partially because I would be shopping with members of my own community rather than going down to County Market and the incredible draw and the mess that it's turned into down there because of the overdevelopment. It would also provide additional tax base and jobs for some of our youth in this community. And given the overwhelming sentiment of our community in support of having a grocery store in North Hudson, I would urge you all to support that. I know several of you are up for re-election next month and several more the following month. I am very happy with the job that you guys have been doing, but going forward, I could not support people that vote against the greatest sentiment of the community. Thank you.
If you'd like to run, I'll pay for your campaign, by the way. Opposed?
Good evening. I'm Doug Sundet, 278 Station Circle North. I think most of what I hope to say has already been stated earlier tonight, but just a couple other points that I wanted to make. First of all, traffic. I think that there's, from Hudson proper, there's one way into North Hudson, one way out. So it is going to increase the traffic dramatically along 35, and I think we all know that at some of the peak traffic seasons that it's very busy and very slow. And I think that's a negative for the entire village of North Hudson. But then if you look at the immediate locality of where the proposed land is, it's really going to increase the traffic in that area into the residential area, which is a negative. I can't recall seeing a grocery store that's been surrounded on three sides by residential area, which I think, sometimes majority opinion is always important, but sometimes when the stakes are so uneven that there's a dozen or 15 houses that are so dramatically affected in terms of quality of life and property value, that majority opinion probably doesn't trump that kind of a situation. So I would urge you to respect the decision of people that live near the area. When they purchased the property, it was owned C2. The expectation was that it would stay C2. When the developer purchased the property, it was C2. The expectation should be that it would stay C2, and it should be very difficult to change the zoning. Thank you, that's all I had.
Thank you. Others in favor?
My name's Jay Wonk, and I live at 616 Lemon Street North. And yeah, this isn't in my backyard. But for those of you who do know me, I did have a chiropractic office here in North Hudson for 6 years. You know what would help a lot? Traffic. Traffic isn't always a bad thing. Look at the businesses that are already here. Do you think they want traffic to drive by their business? You bet they did. And what I did is I talked with my practice members, the patients that came to my office. I said, where do you want my office? And I moved my office there because I listened to the majority. Traffic isn't a bad thing. Thank you.
Interesting, thank you. Opposed?
My name is Pat Coffey. I'm at 560 Somers Landing Road. Again, it's in my backyard. First and foremost, everybody, excuse me, everybody who is pretty much in this room that actually lives in North Hudson knew that there wasn't a grocery store in North Hudson when they moved here. Yet they moved here anyway. If you want to comment in the back, please come up to the mic. Thank you. Just because we have a spot doesn't mean that it has to be put there. Everybody wants a grocery. I'd like a grocery store, but it doesn't mean that just because there's an open spot, it has to be put there. How many grocery stores, if the grocery store was there first and people were building around it and then they moved in there, they have the knowledge knowing that they're going to be moving next to a grocery store. I think that is an extremely big point. You have that option. This, you do not have an option. Now we're saying that we're going to put one in there and you have no choice in the matter because tough, you live there, even though that wasn't the decision when you actually, moved in. First and biggest thing, I guess, is the whole thing is just because if it does get rezoned to C3, doesn't mean it can be a grocery store. He can put anything he wants there under the C3 classification. So that's the whole big thing. It doesn't have to be a grocery store. He can say it is, but if he gets a big offer from somebody else, that's his choice. He owns the property. It would be zoned C3. He has that choice to put anything he wants there. And at that point, then we're stuck. That building built right now has to go through all the planning and commission because we do have that in this city. Also, it has to be in harmony with the residents. And I know you were talking about when you were in County Market the other day, a lot of people when they go up to the hill, they don't just go to County Market. They go to Target, they go to Menards, they go to Walmart, they go to Fleet Farm. They do all their shopping when they go up there. And that's, I think, another point is people don't just go grocery shopping. They go and get everything that they need at the same time. They can go spend a couple hours shopping and hit 7 or 8 different stores, getting their little things from Target or whatever. And it's not just a grocery store that they go get their food. I personally would be probably a snowball's throw away from the dock doors on the back, and I can tell you for one, I would never go in there. I'd rather go up to the hill and get everything I needed at the same time. Go to the Target, go to the Fleet Farm. And I just don't see it being able to be supported by just the residents of North Hudson on a day-to-day basis. Thank you.
What was your house number?
Lot 4.
560?
Lot 5, 560, yep.
So your wife also spoke?
Yes.
Okay.
In favor?
My name is Eric Anderson. I live at 653 4th Street North, and I also have a half interest in one of the townhouses that abuts this property in Winbrook Townhomes. I am in favor of rezoning the property to C3 for pretty much the reasons that a number of other people have already spoke to tonight. Barb, Dean, No offense. To be honest, Barb, if it was in my backyard, I probably would oppose it. But it isn't. And I think as a practical matter, if we're going to have a grocery store in the village, there really isn't anywhere else to put it. If we put it further out on 35, you get into, you know, somebody raised the question about being able to walk to it and so forth. It'd be that much worse. Yeah, and I'm not here to debate all the points. You know, there could be a lot of discussion on points debate on both sides tonight, but ask the board to consider the opinion of a majority of the village according to the survey, and consider approving the rezoning. Thanks.
Opposed?
I'm Gloria Mariana, and I live at 552 Summers Landing. That will also be in my backyard. I guess mainly what I wanted to say was that when I built my home in 1994, I was the first one in that development. There were no other houses around me. And that lot was a very big concern of mine in considering where I was going to build as to what it was going to be. And I was basically told it would be multifamily. And I was okay with that. So that's why I decided to go ahead and build my home there. Had I have known that someday down the road, and I've been there 14 years, that it was going to come up where it would be zoned as C3 and possibly a commercial lot where any business, you know, could go in there, I would have built my house somewhere else. So, you know, I wasn't given, you know, that option back then because, like I say, I was told it was multifamily. So I guess
which wasn't accurate at all.
Well, but see, that's what I was told when I asked, because there were no other homes in there. So I mean, I could have built somewhere else, is what I'm saying, had I have known that. So, you know, when I'm out in my backyard, I will be looking at the back of that, and the trucks, when they're delivering, will be in the backyard. And Mr. Hanson stated at the Planning Commission that it would be 7 or 8 trucks that would, you know, be delivering. So, you know, I'm kind of affected by that too when I'm out in my backyard. I don't want to have to look at dumpsters and, you know, listen to the delivery trucks or having them pull up right along, you know, the back of my fence. So, you know, I guess I just was kind of misled then when I built my home as to what that property could eventually be. So I guess I'm just asking to please consider not rezoning that as C3, keeping it a C2. Thank you.
Only a question.
Yes.
You own your home or does Dean?
I own the home.
So Dean is not a resident?
I built it.
Dean is
He's
not-
living there, yes.
Pro, in favor? Pro, in favor, however you want to do it.
My name is Lee Elger, 631 8th Street North, and I'm in favor of this rezoning. And I've heard of a lot of different things here this evening about air pollution and noise and runoff, and I think if that were the case, then I think maybe most of the establishments that you have in North Hudson probably should be looked at by the village, up around the village area, and some of the different areas. But I think most of the people that live around us are in favor of it, and I don't know if you as trustee members and your constituents have spoken. And I think, as this one gentleman said, I think you need to listen to what your constituents have said to you. And I don't know if you've gone out and checked with them personally in your neighborhoods, but I think that's a very strong statement that the community has made to you. So, thank you very much for your time.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone opposed?
My name is Therese Mitchell. I live at 1292 Cratley Lane. Mr. President, trustees, thank you for the opportunity to make a public comment. Just a couple of things. This, as I mentioned at the Planning Commission meeting where I also spoke, this proposal isn't right in my backyard. However, I certainly feel empathy for those people who do live right near there. I do believe it is an inappropriate zoning in a residential area, whether it's a grocery store or anything else that would fall within that classification. And with all due respect to Mr. Radosevich, I do think that you need to give deference to the decision of the Planning Commission. That's why you have one. That's their job, is to weigh all the facts and to come up with a recommendation. Otherwise, why would you need one? And I also think you do need to listen to your constituents. I'm one of them, and so are many people in this room. I also filled out the survey. The survey asked if I wanted a market. Didn't ask if I wanted a grocery store. It said market/grocery store. Didn't ask me if I wanted a supermarket. When I answered the question, I had envisioned a market, like Len's in Stillwater, a small neighborhood store to go to. I would venture to say most people aren't going to walk to this place because of the highway restrictions. They're going to drive. They're going to get in their car the same way they do right now. I think this is inappropriate use of the zoning authority. I think this is not a matter of taking a piece of paper out and putting a tick on who all spoke for it and who spoke against it. If you have 24, 20 against, then what are you going to do? You need to weigh all the best interests of everybody rather than just going with, if you think the majority, if it's 51% are in favor and 50 against. You have to weigh all of the factors here, and it's more than just a survey. That same survey also said, do you want to preserve the small town atmosphere of the village of North Hudson? And that was the overwhelming majority of people said, yes, we do. Small town atmosphere. So I would urge you to keep the current zoning at C2. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to speak in favor? Don't have to. I'm just waiting to see if there's any more volunteers want to come up and take the mic for a minute or two. Yes.
My name is Kevin Blensman. I live at 1113 Michelson Street. I have to probably echo all the pro statements that have been made here tonight, but when you have, that was just the lady that just had mentioned, if you have 51% for and 50 against, what are you going to do? Well, I think what you need to do is go back to that survey and say, you know what, 80% of the people were in favor of this. And when my wife and I moved here about 8 years ago, that was the one thing we felt this community needed, and now we really believe that after Erickson's is closed. So I would like you guys to give it real serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Opposed? Yes.
Jamie Anderson, 520 Summers Landing Road. I would just like to reiterate a few things that my fellow neighbors have discussed tonight. My husband and I recently moved to North Hudson, and I'd just like to give you a few of the reasons why we chose North Hudson over Hudson, River Falls, and the surrounding area. We looked at, there weren't very many houses for sale in North Hudson when we were looking, and the one that we did find, we were real impressed with the neighborhood, how quiet it was, the lack of traffic. It's the first time since I think we've been out of high school or college where we can sleep in till 9, 10 o'clock at night or in the morning because there's no street lights. It's dark. You got your curtains drawn. There's no traffic. There's
You're
no light
asking for
pollution.
streetlights?
Huh? No, I'm not.
Thank you.
We met all of our neighbors real quick. I think this is an unfortunate but good opportunity for us to have met more of our neighbors and come together with this issue. And I just would hate to see all of our neighbor kids lose the ability to run across the street when they see me pull in the driveway, for me to be able to cross the street without even a second look as to whether or not a car's coming, because you can hear the car coming 2 blocks away. And I think we could lose a lot of our neighborhood appeal if this grocery store or this zoning is changed to C3. Thank you.
Thank you. In favor?
Not as Mr. Hansen's representative, but as a resident, I have a comment.
Request
in that
denied. You can't
capacity.
talk twice, Bill. Sit down.
Bill Rosevich again, 1543 Riverside Drive North. I've been a resident of the village not 2 years, 4 years, but 34 years. And I just did some rough calculations of the number of miles that I put driving from my house at the end of Riverside Drive to a grocery store. And over that time, it's probably about 20,000 miles. And it was a little scoffed at the Plan Commission meeting and said, oh, it's only 4 miles, but multiply that by 1,000 households and we're burning a lot of gas. On a personal note, 38 years ago come June, my first day in the office as a practicing attorney, there was a memo on a file that says, go to North Hudson and sit in Mr. Schumacher's chair as village attorney, which I did that night. And back then, and we used to have a picture of Dan here, Dan Zeza, who was village board president.
It's outside.
It's outside. Okay. And I don't remember what was on the agenda that night, but I do remember the community and the ability to rationally come to conclusions on a reasonable basis. So we're asking for a Dan Zeza decision this evening. Thank you.
I would like to just comment that I've received a lot of letters and reassure everyone that every letter that has come in here has been copied and distributed.
Can you give us a flavor of what those letters for or against?
I would have to say they're overwhelmingly in favor. But, okay. Right. Anyone else opposed?
I'm another Eric Anderson at 520 Summers Landing Road. Gentlemen. As my wife had stated previously, we moved here last year in August, so we didn't get to take that survey. So there's 2 more that maybe I'll drop that percentage a little bit. But our lot is not on that map. We're just off the map. So maybe we could see that from our very end of our backyard, but I drive by it every day and I enjoy the open space a lot. I grew up in the country. Ideally I'd like to get back to the country. I live in the city and that's just great with me too. I'm fine living in the city, but I enjoy having the open space just to drive past it and see the deer walk out through there. I don't mind stopping, letting the deer walk in front of me in the road. With an open lot there, or with the open parking lot there, they might not travel through there as much. And I could go on and on about everything that has been stated already before about the people who are opposed to it. But I'm not going to do that because I think you guys are getting the feeling of that as well. But just I enjoy the open space, and I think it'd be a shame to lose that, even though it's an area where no one walks through. It's just nice to have that out there. Thank you.
Pros? Yes.
Judy O'Connor, 126 7th Street North. I've lived in North Hudson for almost all of my 70 years. In fact, I was actually born in North Hudson. When I was a kid, we had two grocery stores. We had the Clover Farm store, and we had Eldon Salzwig store. Both of them cut meat, and both of them had a full line of groceries. And I can't exactly remember what happened to Eldon's store, but Clover Farm store, the last grocery store, closed when it burned down, the Clover Farm store.
Where was that?
That was right, like, across from Dan Zez's house on on 6th Street.
That was Salzwig's.
Yeah, that was Salzwig's later. Salzwig's was a butcher in there at one time, but that was the Clover Farm store.
Oh, no, I was down here.
Yeah, but it was the Clover Farm store then. Eldon used to have a store down across from Malibu Bar at one time.
I wasn't there.
That was before your time. But anyway, I think we need a grocery store. And up until Tom Thumb closed, we did have a small grocery store in North Hudson, but now it's just a gas station with very limited stuff. So I think we need one, and I think that it's too bad that things have to be ruined for the people in Station Circle, but if that's what it takes, that's what it takes, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Others opposed?
Can I readdress?
Sure.
Tim Higgins again, Station Lane, 355 Station Lane. Reflecting on living in the neighborhood here for almost 13 years and looking at the members of the board, I think Mark was the only one with the longevity or the seniority compared to everybody else in the chairs here. And you've been entrusted with the lives and the comfort and the safety of the people of the village. And you're more than likely in these seats because we saw the village going in the wrong direction with previous management. And the village voted you in to make sure that things would go in the right direction. And I believe that a C3 would be the wrong direction. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Another in favor? Dean, it looks like this is your chance to do the swan song.
All right. My name is Dean Hanson, and I have Hanson Design and Construction. I've been a builder for 30-plus years in both Hudson and North Hudson. I just want to address some of the concerns that have been brought up by the neighbors. We can design a building that has all the lighting in a soffit, and if you'd like to see some of my buildings that do that, and we'll approach this at the time of the Planning Commission, you can see that we can downlight a building in such a way that it doesn't reflect out. It just downlights the front of the building. Secondly, we can berm the property all the way around with a raised berm of dirt and 6- and 7-foot trees to start with, double layers thick, which will eventually take the view of that whole property away from the people who surround it. Thirdly, I drove through the neighborhood, and every corner has got a street light in St. Croix Station and Station Circle. And I've heard the people make the comment that, you know, I have this nice dark neighborhood that I live in and I can see the stars at night. I don't think you can see the stars at night if you drive through and look at all the street lights on every corner. And if you can get to the back of your house where there's no street lights, you certainly aren't going to see the shopping center there either. So therefore, the back of your home is protected. The most positive thing this property does is it reflects all the sound from Highway 35. If I put that building there, that's a concrete structure, it's going to reflect all the sound. Anyone who lives behind that is no longer going to hear what's happening on 35 or across 35, because it becomes a sound barrier. The other issue is traffic, and I've come down here on a Friday and Saturday night, and there's, between all the dining and liquor establishments, there's over 270 cars parked here. And I asked at the Planning Commission, I said, is there any complaints? No, we don't have any complaints. We have an excavating company who starts equipment at 7 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the morning. Big diesels, they have dump trucks. They load fill, unload fill. Any complaints? No complaints. I went to County Market the last 4 days. Counted the cars there at 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. 28 cars. That's an establishment twice the size of this. 28 cars there at 7 o'clock in the morning. At 9 o'clock in the morning, there were less. At noon, there were 36 cars at County Market today. Traffic here is going to be during the day, not at night when the rest of the traffic is happening in North Hudson. Because your night traffic is all your bars and restaurants. The only daytime traffic you're going to have would be this grocery store. And people don't go to a grocery store to party. They go to the grocery store to get their groceries and go home. I talked to County Market a long time about the freight. I went back and looked at their freight arrangement. County Market at the present time receives 2 full semis a day of groceries. Their loading hours are from 6 o'clock in the morning till noon. If you're not there by noon, you do not get to unload. So they're 2 semis a day. They have a pop truck, they have a pizza truck, they have a bread truck. And these are small vans. These aren't semis we're talking about. We're talking about an establishment half that size. We're talking maybe 1 semi a day. And we're talking about it during the time which we can set the hours that everyone in the village is working. So freight is not going to be that. Sound is being reflected. Garbage is being picked up every place in the village all at the same time. A garbage truck comes to the front of your house, comes to the restaurants, it comes to the bars. If you can't hear the garbage truck in front of your house, the garbage truck who's picking up once a week at the grocery store shouldn't be bothering you. If I built this in C2 on this lot, according to your zoning specifications, I could build a 2-story building in one corner using a 20,000 square foot footprint and end up with like 175 to 180 cars parking on this lot and make that work. And I'd have more space to rent. My purpose is not to do that. My purpose is to give the village a grocery store. That's what the village wants. I think that's what the village needs. And I didn't get to be a builder for 37 years by not doing what I say I'm going to do. And I think that's an important point. And people have called me for the last 2 or 3 weeks to my home and said, how can we help you do this? I think the people have showed up. At the Planning Commission, there was 3-1 in favor. Tonight with the letters, there's probably more than 3-1 in favor. And we had the survey. There's no need to say that. So it's now up to you. The board is really the only body standing between the village of North Hudson getting a grocery store and the people. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Questions and answers. Yeah, we have questions for Bill and for Dean. We do that during open session.
He means closing the hearing.
Before you close the public hearing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when do I do questions?
You can do that now, or you can do that when you're deliberating on the specific question you can ask you to. But then it's on the board, it's called
Okay.
questions. You're not gonna have a given, it could be,
Yeah.
come on, go look.
Okay. That,
I just want to look at the map.
Oh, sure. What I'd like to do now is just give board members an opportunity to ask Bill and or Dean or Tom if they've got questions for the village's attorney. Questions, and that way hopefully everybody gets a chance to hear them. Then we do a vote which closes the public session, and then the board goes into deliberation, at which point in time there's no more interchange, although the board can ask others questions at any point in time. Anytime it tries to solicit information, that would make a decision. So, does the board members have any questions they'd like to ask of Dean or Bill? Or Tom? I have one. I think during the Plan Commission you had made reference to the fact that Econo Foods would be potentially associated?
No. How this has come about is that Tom Dickman, who is the person who has been contacting me and working with me on the grocery store project,
who's he?
Is one of the executive officers at Nash Finch. Okay? So that's how the Econo Foods gets tied into this. But he is buying from Nash Finch at the present time the store in Somerset, Wisconsin, because it's too small a store for what the Nash Finch Corporation now wants to work with. And then Tom wants this as a second location, which I have agreed to help him do this as a second store location.
So when it's all said and done, who will own the land and the building?
I will own the land and the building, and Tom Dickman will be the leasee, although I may also own part of the grocery store. I can't rule that out at this moment.
Okay.
But he will be the operating general manager and the person who is dealing with us at the present time.
Dean, while you're at the microphone, if you could just take a second to explain a couple of things. On the rear of the building, which I would guess would be the west side where it adjoins the three lots, it's sort of jagged shaped. I'm assuming those are loading docks or access for your general storage.
There could be one loading dock, there could be two loading docks. The idea was employee parking behind the building. Okay, but there is room for that. And we've got that drawing is showing a 20-foot wide roadway in the back. We can narrow that roadway to 12 and gain another 8 feet on that berm space and add to our green space and double our tree line across the back. So these are all things that we'll deal with in the Planning Commission stages and in our design, in the final design stages. This is just the first proposal, but we have all kinds of time as a Planning Commission and a City Council and my company to work this out, that garbage is hidden and the traffic is working correctly and our neighbors are protected. And that's the things I'm looking for.
Thank you. I have two questions and follow up to that. With that roadway as it's currently proposed as being 20 feet wide, would that actually allow for a semi-truck to drive through the parking lot and not have to back in off of the street on the north property?
Correct. That curve's radius is designed to take a tractor trailer of 60 feet.
It is. And then as it is designed in this depiction, it also includes enough space for a single berm? Or is there no berm in this?
No, there is a berm there right now.
Okay.
If you go out and shoot the property at the present time, that property is about 3.5 feet lower than the 3 lots behind them. So that does sink the building to start with.
Okay.
If we go look at that berm, we can berm that property probably 3 to 4 feet above the neighbor's grade of their property, leaving, of course, drainage to work, because our property will become the natural drainage cycle, and there'll be storm sewers in the rear of that building collecting up their drainage. And then on top of the berm, you'd put a double row of white pines, as we've done in a lot of our projects in the city of Hudson. And they are 6-footers, and so you're already at 10 feet with the berm, and you're already 14 feet up the building, so within 2 years, the building disappears probably from the people in the backyard.
And then I'd love to say one last question, but I'll probably have one more. But on the south side of this, a mention was made at the Planning Commission about the drainage ditch. I've actually walked the property and gotten a good look at it, and that is a concern. Is there a way to adapt a berm and some type of a buffer zone and still retain
Well,
that drainage ditch?
The drainage just would not exist in this project, okay? What do you have coming across the road, if I remember correctly, and people, I'm not sure because I didn't go measure them, I believe you have a 12-inch coming across the road from Mama Maria's, and we probably have a 12-inch coming down from the fourplexes or Fort 16. What do we got coming down from there? Anyway, that will probably calculate out by the engineers to being a 24 or 30-inch sewer passing through the whole property and then reopening up at that radius into the drainage ditch. And you'd want that buried anyway because you wouldn't want to do a surface runoff of a parking lot into a drainage ditch. You'd want to collect it in catch basins so it wouldn't freeze and then run it out to the sewer, which is underground, and then back out to the drainage ditch.
Okay.
So you'd grade your parking lots and everything so they collect all the water and handle everything that's flowing to that site at the present time.
I'm kind of curious, Dean, in the retail food industry is probably one of the most difficult businesses in the world to operate successfully.
Yes.
And the guy that's leaving, is he leaving Nash Finch?
But he's in the office of Nash Finch, Tom is. He's not one of their store managers.
I mean, if you look at Nash Finch just as a business, $4.6 billion, they lost $24 million in the last quarter. They're going to lose money for the year for 2006. I mean, I'm looking at them, and I'm not critical of Nash Finch. I'm just being reflective of how damn difficult that industry is to operate in. They have the lowest return on assets, the slimmest gross margins I've ever seen. I mean, it's just difficult. I mean, I would never, ever want to be investing in it. And it certainly explains why SuperValue bought Albertsons. And I suspect it also explains why the mega store, the large store, continues to grow. In addition to just adding the other kinds of ancillary type services that Bill had mentioned on the front, and you can throw in your dry cleaning and that kind of stuff.
If I can jump in.
Why would a small grocery store make it?
All right, Tom and I talked about that today because we had some conversation just before I came tonight. And I said to him, why the store he's buying in Somerset is about 19,000 square feet. And the store he'd be running here is about 25,000 square feet. And
didn't I read 35,000 in the minutes?
35,000 would be what I'd be talking about if I was in C2. You see what I'm saying? Because I can build a bigger building. I can go second story on some things. In C3, I'm talking 30,000 maximum that I can get on the lot on one level.
On the footprint.
Yeah. Back to my conversation with Tom today. The store in Somerset is about 19,000 square feet. At the present time, it is losing money. And when Tom takes out what they call GO or general office overhead for Nash Finch out of the store, and Nash Finch's operating costs, because the figures are there, the store's been operating for several years, it will become a profitable operation. When it's a one-man show, they can make money. When you have a big corporate structure to support, you can't make money.
If it's a franchise?
Yeah. Is this a franchise? No.
Go ahead. I'll have more.
Dean, describe the two-story building. If this doesn't go to C3, if this stays at C2, describe the building that you could put there potentially and what you would perceive the occupants to be as far as what businesses would you be able to entice to come into the village?
The people that have approached me so far for the business park One was a group of doctors who wanted to operate a 24-hour clinic, 10 doctors, and because they're thinking about moving from another location, and they would take up the whole operation by the size of their operation. I've been approached by such firms as Curves and hairdressing people. Again, I haven't paid much attention to them because that's really not where I think I want to go.
But describe the building itself.
The building itself would be a 10,000 square foot footprint, which would probably be 145 feet by 145 feet. Does that give you some concept? 2 stories high. Steve McDonald's son built one up behind Target, you know, that type of building. And your code allows for a building to be that height. Okay. And then you have more square footage, so therefore you need more parking. And being that the building takes up much less of the lot space, you can increase the parking to cover that building. Because at the present time, your parking code is 1 car per 200 square feet.
I'm really glad to hear that the square footage has gotten reduced or is at the 30,000 square foot level. I've done quite a bit of research, as I'm sure you have. Being the new board member for our small village, I felt compelled to reread and research just about every aspect of the zone book or the code book and the comprehensive plan. And I was having some troubles with understanding the numbers of a 35,000 square foot building and keeping the sensitivity of the adjoining property owners in that type of plan. I redrew up my own makeshift blueprints and was actually able to fit a 30,000 square foot building in here and still have buffer zones for people around it. And that does take a little bit of
Is this 30,000? I thought it was
Right
19.
there, the footprint that's drawing right there is like, I think, 29,080 square feet or something like that. Footprint is sitting there.
Okay.
But just to reassure the residents, it would fit. It complies with what I can see, all of the zoning requirements, and still does allow for ample buffering.
Along those lines, I tried to envision what 25,000 square feet would be, and I dare say there are very few people who, unless you're in the business, you're not going to be able to imagine what 25,000 square feet is. And so what I did was I thought about my 100-foot by 230-foot lot. Geez, that comes pretty close to the size of what that store would be, as square footage-wise. I'm just throwing that out, not for any argument discussions, just that's sort of a handle on what would that look like.
A question on roads and utilities. First of all, on the north side there, it looks like there's a couple of access lanes or something like that going into the property. Is that, and I think there's another one on Highway 35, if I'm not mistaken, on the south end. Is that correct? There's 3 access points and departure points, 2 on Station Lane and 1 on 35?
Yes, I mean, that's what that
That's what that plan is.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, what's going on behind the building, that access is very limited to use of, again, maybe
I
in the area
understand.
of 3 or 4 trucks a day.
Okay, and then the main dock, at least that you're showing there, is off of Station Lane. Am I correct there?
No, the main dock would be back in that the larger section, clear in the south end probably of that drawing.
Oh, okay, south or southwest?
Yeah, that biggest, longest bay there.
Okay. I thought there was another path going there right on right next to all of the parking there.
Yeah.
The other question I have is let's just make the assumption that was going to be the property that we'd be looking at. Would there be a need for adding a turn lane or widening Station Lane there so that you can gain access into that?
Not from my experience. We will need a deceleration lane on Highway 35 and an acceleration lane on that side, but that's happened also on the other side of the street.
Okay. And do we?
I'm just talking here because I'm concerned about costs that the village may have to pick up in this kind of activity. I don't know, utilities, roads, do we need a traffic signal at that location, or would we in the future? And I'm concerned about, one of my concerns is how much would the village have to pick up in terms of cost for development of that property in terms of utilities, and what changes have to be made on 35 and Station Lane?
None that I know of.
Is our engineer prepared to speak on that?
I'm sorry to set you up, Kevin. But you didn't ask for this job, I know. Sorry.
Just to restate, Kevin William from Cedar Corporation, the village engineer. And I was actually going to comment, I've been hearing quite a few concerns about, the amount of traffic that's going to be generated from this facility. And a lot of these things will actually come out as part of the conditional use permit process. But that is, from what I'm looking at, with what's proposed for the site plan currently, that's one of my biggest concerns of, the amount of traffic that's going to be generated. What impact is that going to have on Station Lane and Highway 35? And one of my recommendations will be is, a traffic impact analysis should be generated to basically study, with the additional traffic that's going to be generated, does it warrant a condition where we need to be looking at upgrading that intersection with traffic signals? The other concern is there is an access point that is shown on the south side, Highway 35. We're going to end up they'll have to apply through the DOT for access at that location. I have had some discussions with the DOT representatives, and kind of a rule of thumb that sits out there is they like to see 500 feet of separation between two intersections. And if you do take a look at what the frontage is currently, it doesn't quite meet that requirement. But a lot of that's going to be into their jurisdiction, into their control. And just one other thing, I know I've heard some other comments about stormwater management. That will be regulated since it is a commercial building, it's a public building. Department of Commerce will be involved, along with your current ordinances within the municipal code. There are some things in there that addresses, like the amount of runoff that's going to be generated, the quantity, the quality. This particular parcel does ultimately drain into the facility. The regional pond that sits down in the park. So I think that's been addressed, but they need to take a look at, with the sanding and the salting, pre-treatment, before it's ultimately discharged into the drainage ditch that ultimately leads into that regional facility. And a lot of those things will come out as part of the conditional use, but that's just some of my initial comments that I have on the parcel.
Thanks, Kevin.
Kevin, could I ask you one question? Sure. Do you see any change in those requirements should this proposal be rezoned C3 or remain C2 with a smorgasbord of various businesses? Would all of these same situations still exist?
Yes, I think they'd be relative. And a lot of it with the C2, if it is going to stay under that existing zoning, we're going to need to know, what is the intent for, are we looking at another bank, the potential there with a drive-through, even though there is one right across the street, just to try to get an idea of what businesses would be slated within into that business. And I would recommend that a traffic impact study be looked at that scenario also.
Thank you.
Obviously, a number of things have been thrown out some ideas about putting up buffers and putting up trees and doing things to kind of screen the property. Joe had asked the rather sweeping question, which is what would be the potential cost impact to the village, because there is a possibility that we might need to put in an additional lane, both coming and going on Highway 35, assuming the DOT would bless that. Okay. I mean, has it been your assumption all along that, basically you're gonna be picking up all of the costs?
Yes, when I do projects like this, as a developer, deceleration lanes, if are needed,
Yeah.
end up being your responsibility. Change in storm sewers, your responsibility.
Okay. Streetlights?
Streetlights are your responsibility. That's, be nice if I could get the city to pay for all the stuff.
Oh, you
It'd be-
won't.
Yeah. it'd be-
No, don't go for.
So I knew there was no reason to go there.
What I'm trying to do is be careful not to get too enamored with the design over here, because that's not the question that the board votes on tonight. Question the board votes on is, are we prepared to move it from one commercial class to another commercial class? Dean has clearly indicated his intentions for the property. But we can't hold him to them. Obviously the man's as good as his word, but we can't hold him to them. And long term, and my personal concern long term is, can you make your grocery store go? It's not all that big. Right? You seem to be bucking the trend.
That's a couple $1 million.
Well, I mean, you do have, you don't. I mean, you actually have alternatives, because you could take the building and refab it, and obviously you'll do something else with it, okay, which will be a C3. So. I'm not trying to get, I'm not looking for guarantees. I'm not looking for guarantees. Okay. Okay, I think it's time for the board to start chatting. Unless there are any more comments from residents. Yes.
So, if it's not changed to a C3, are you still intending to build something there anyway?
Yeah, let's just make sure that everybody understands. It's a simple situation. That lot is a C2. Okay, a C2 typically, if you want to look for a simple word, means some type of like an office building.
Right.
We actually have kind of an anomaly in our ordinances. A C2, which is supposed to be a little bit more protective than a C3, you can actually build a taller building under a C2 than you can under a C3.
So the affected neighbors will have something in their backyard no matter what?
Very likely, yes.
Yes. Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Yes. Okay.
Can I just throw something in?
Sure.
Some of us have been doing our homework and reading our own book, the municipal code. What I found interesting was, huh? So, well, yeah, that's just interesting reading.
Get to the point, George.
My
Come
big
on.
black book here. I've heard comments about how the property had been changed from conservancy already to C2. Keep in mind that all of the property that you folks live on at one time was conservancy. And here's the uses that conservancy district could have. You could have a sewage disposal plant and a conservancy. You could have water storage and pumping facilities. You could have a golf course. You could have seasonal public camping grounds on your conservancy district. So I'm just adding to what you just said, Larry, about how we protect our properties, and yet when we look at some of these, we have to ask ourselves the question, which would I rather have?
No. Okay. Okay. Are there any other residents who want to speak?
Just a comment to that last point. Yeah, I guess it sounds like there could be all of those things, but I don't think that it would be automatic that if it was zoned C2 that any of those would automatically be approved. The property would still have to be.
Okay.
That's true, Doug. We recognize it. Yeah.
I was derelict. I should have had Doug come up to the microphone. But okay. Point taken. Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to come up to the microphone? Okay.
Do you want a motion to close the?
Seeing none, then I would, Chair would entertain a motion to come out of open session. All right. Or to close, I'm sorry, to close the public hearing.
Second.
So, I just make a note.
Give it to Colleen so her name is in the notes.
Oh.
She hasn't been in.
I think, does that require a vote? No. Okay. All right, all in favor of closing the public hearing? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay.
For those of you that are leaving, thank you all for coming.
And
We
thank you
we
for
really
being-
appreciate your
Don't they want to know what happens?
talking to us and let us know how you feel about this. Really do. Really do.
Yeah, how are you doing tonight? Thanks for leaving.
They probably don't.
What's that?
I don't know.
But I don't.
You want to hear what we have to say?
You know how it goes down here.
I think all of us are gonna probably lose.
You know how it can go here, I don't know.
That's why if you're a smart,
Yeah, I hope so, otherwise I'm leaving.
You got it made.
well, not a smart politician, if you were in pop music and that sort of stuff, you never talk politics. I mean, because 51% of it is all you're gonna get. The other 49 are gonna get ticked off.
I remember Saul's Figs, Freddie. All I said was Saul's Figs used to be across from Dick Zez's.
Okay. I was going to do this after the board vote, but why don't we take just a 2-minute break right now, as long as people are leaving. We're not.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. So,
When did I take a break?
I'm coming around on it all, but
8:35. Break. Return.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Return at 8:40. All right. As everybody's obviously aware, the Plan Commission dealt with the issue of should we rezone this particular lot from a C2 to a C3? And their recommendation was to not do that on a vote of 5-1, one person being absent. And so now the same, so they have a recommendation to us to, follow their action. Okay. So the issue is, do we want to change this from a C2 to a C3? And I think from my perspective, at least, forever. Okay?
What did you say?
Forever.
Oh,
Okay? I mean, when you decide to make a change like this, where do you want to go from a C3 to a C2? I mean, or when you start making them broader, I think you have to look at it, you're doing it for a pretty long period of time. Is that a reasonable assumption?
because you can always build this in the C2 category.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that he can't build something.
No, my point is,
A lesser use.
it's implied in that because you can always, if it's C3, you can underbuild classification if you want. You can keep going down.
Yes.
So, I mean, that is the case. I'm agreeing with you, it is forever.
Yes, okay. What would constitute a C3 besides a grocery store?
that's what I was wondering. What's, I hate to be sarcastic here, but my
All right,
thinking is,
I would assume that Super America would be a C3, a Super America's type station.
I'm not sure, a clothing store, a shoe store. I think the general commercial is more the.
Oh, could you please come to the mic?
But if you look at the definition, the only definition that we have, this is one thing which I find kind of unfortunate. Our C2 gives lots of nice examples. So, as a resident, and if I read it, it would say things like a doctor's office there and a professional office. A C3 is defined as it seems to be correlated with high traffic type activities. C3. Now, there's no longer a debate. This is only for the board. Okay, we're not in open session anymore. Sorry.
I can read the C2 is called Limited Commercial District, C2. The C2 district is intended to accommodate those offices and/or professional uses which are specifically compatible to one another and often located separate from general retail, variety, and convenience businesses. It is intended that the uses permitted in this district shall be located and designed so as to be in harmony with existing and future residential uses adjacent to or within 1,000 feet of such district. The C2 district is intended for, without limitation by enumeration, offices for dentists, doctors, accountants, attorneys, real estate, and insurance, as well as banks, hospitals, funeral homes, barbershops, beauty salons, or such similar office or professional services. Sales of merchandise may only be incidental to the primary office or professional use. General Commercial District, C3. The C3 district is intended to provide for the orderly and attractive grouping at appropriate locations along principal traffic routes of those businesses and customer services which are logically related to and dependent upon vehicular traffic or which are specifically designed to serve the needs of such traffic. There are no examples that are provided.
Dean, there's a couple of lots right across the street that are already zoned C3. Why don't you just buy those and put your store there and ka-ching, away we go.
We have 108,000 square feet in this lot, which is 2.5 acres.
Mm-hmm.
Those lots across the street don't even come close to
Do you need it? I mean, you said the building is only going to be 30,000 square feet.
If I have to follow your building code, I gotta have a parking lot that maintains a 30,000 square foot building. Unless you wanna change your building code for parking.
Grant variance.
Grant variance, yeah.
Following all of the code regulations, as a developer, I'm sure Dean and anybody would want to use virtually every square foot that's available to him. And the numbers I ran with the 25% buffer zone, with the setbacks being, in fact, it's a corner lot, he's got an additional side lot setback, and everything, it's right down to the wire at 30,000 feet. And basically, if you calculate in, it's 300 square feet per parking stall. You need one parking stall per every 200 square usable feet. It's right there, so it's interesting.
So do the math for me. How many parking stalls does he have there?
150 on a 30,000 square foot building now.
Well, this kind of reminds me of the situation. I built my first house over here on Summer Street. I couldn't get my wife to move out in the country, but we built the first house on Summer Street. Nobody lived around us. And after about 6 months, she said, well, I think, and then somebody started building a house, and she said, isn't it too bad they're building a house? And I said, why is it too bad? Well, she said, I've kind of gotten used to living in the country here with nobody around us. You know? Now, this lot has clearly been, on the books as a C2 for quite some time, so that doesn't come as any surprise to anybody. If you say what's the difference between a C2 and a C3, it seems to be one sells things, the other is basically a professional office building. Okay.
Is there anything, didn't read the book obviously, is there anything other than C3? Is there a C4?
No.
I think the next classification is industrial.
Industrial.
Could it be?
Which is limited to, right now, the shops.
Okay, but
that'd be like manufacturing.
Okay, so this could not be that, right?
Well, it could be.
Well, I mean,
we'd have to rezone it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are.
But it means
you have many other zonings too, and that has to do mostly. The other zoning has to do with multiple family, single family, that type of structure.
Okay, but they couldn't do manufacturing on this lot if we made it C3.
No. What concerns me is if we leave it C2 and Dean builds a building on there, now you're talking about a 45-foot tall building. It's going to take a lot longer for the trees to cover that building than it would be the 35-foot. You can say, well, it's only 10 feet, but that's a significant 10 feet.
We're only talking 26 feet.
26?
Let me just raise the question.
45 versus 35.
Why would we want to change this from a C2 to a C3?
Basically to achieve what the community wants in the comprehensive plan, which is, at this point, it seems a grocery store.
So how did the comprehensive, or how did the plan commission miss that? Which I
Well,
don't think they did, but.
If I could just, I'm going to try to keep this down to a minute. I've spent a lot of time watching the Plan Commission on TV, took notes at home. This is a little off the wall, you'll think I'm crazy, but I went to a friend's 50th birthday party in Glencoe, Minnesota this weekend. And rather than just sitting around enjoying, we had to go down and pick up some groceries at the local grocery store. And we pull into the residential area of Glencoe. And I said, wow, this is interesting. He goes, yeah, this was the turmoil of the town just within the last year. I said, no, don't tell me this. But anyway, going on, what had happened is dead smack in the middle of a residential area, there was the high school football field. And the high school moved out to a different building, which left this area, which was acquired, and subsequently a grocery store put in on it. And the residents were beside themselves. Everybody was up in arms. This was large. This ended up being a 42,000. I'm at the grocery store with my milk. Could I see the manager, please? I'd like to see a blueprint of this. And so at any rate, to go on, I ended up with one of the trustees of the Village of Glencoe and asked him more details about this. And it's interesting how they made it fit. You know, we drove around the back. It didn't have the garbage that was on the pictures. Glencoe is a community similar to ours, and the same things happened. But now that it's in, now that it's done, the people truly are not objective to it being there at all. As a matter of fact, they like it. They did a fantastic job. I mean, it looks like fake brick. It looks like, if you go down to the shipyards, the way Mark did his building, I mean, you can do, you know, obviously it's not going to be brick, but you can make things look right. I think what happened, though, to answer your question, Larry, at the last meeting, was that the site, the vision got lost on the fact that something is going to go into this property. And we, as a village, have to decide what that's going to be. You can build virtually the same thing, whether it's C2 or C3. What we have to do is try to do, you know, what's best. I have the same concerns you have. If it fails, it's C3. We can't change it back to C2. There's no getting around that point. My hope at this point is that we would stand up as a community and, you know, be respectful of the fact that Dean has spent a lot of time, a lot of money. He could have come up to this whole community and said, I'm going to build a grocery store. Before I even start out, I want to make sure I can get it zoned C3, and said he was going to build a little 15,000-foot market. We could have rezoned it, and then said, you know, hey, I can't make the numbers match. It's going to have to be bigger. You know, I don't know if that's technically possible. As
we still can.
Right, but he hasn't. I mean, he's come up to us with what it takes to make it work, you know, whether you like it or not. And I would much rather, I don't know, I have my concerns about another track mall going in there, or something that isn't going to benefit us. I mean, if we're going to a track mall, or, you know, anything that's C2, if you want to go see a chiropractor or go work out, you can do it at Hudson. But, you know, for groceries, it just seems more appropriate for that lot. And it's a little bit of rambling, but there's just so many issues on both sides of the fence that I would hate to see this property get developed into something that isn't really going to be beneficial in the long term for this community. And it would be my hopes that the village would stand behind them and support.
Yeah, well, obviously the Plan Commission was wrestling with the same problem, which is, you know, who on there said we don't want a grocery store? We don't like grocery stores. They're by definition evil. Well, nobody's saying that. Okay? So I mean, it isn't the issue of it. Is it a grocery store?
No, exactly.
No? If you did decide you wanted to build a grocery store over across the street on those two lots, if those would have been big enough, it's already a C3, you'd probably be putting a shovel in the ground already. Problem is when you take a chunk which is on a corner, and I believe those three corners were kept C2, C2, C2. the Bardale property, the bank, and that one was kept as a C2 in order to try and minimize creating a real traffic congestion nightmare.
What was?
on
Which
that
was?
end of the village. Pardon?
The Bardell property?
That's a C2.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one in the bank is also a C2. So I'm just saying, if you take that intersection there,
I don't think there was that kind of planning involved with it.
I'm told that there was.
No, I was sitting on it. I was on the planning commission back then. I could tell you most of it was spurred by the fact that Bob wanted to get an office building. That parcel was outside the village. We annexed it in, and it was driven primarily by his need to put up an office for his own practice.
Okay.
So,
All right. I mean, there was at least some logic there to having C2, C2, C2 around an intersection. Doesn't mean it's right, I'm just saying that.
no, I'm just saying some of that, be honest with you, I don't know if there was that much foresight involved as much as it was just spurred by the desires of parties at the time who wanted to develop the property, which is generally the case. At least up here, as we're seeing right now. There's not that much activity.
Let me ask a question this way. Why would I want to change this to a C3 if it was not a grocery store? Just assume it's not. Dean just said, Laura's right. Can't make any money in grocery stores. Why would we want to change this to a C3 if it's not a grocery store? It would be then some other type of retail. Instead of Walmart big box, it's Walmart really little box.
No, let's address that, because I've heard this a couple times from people talking about big boxes. This community is not going to support a big box of any kind, so let's.
Well, we
not
don't have
even
the
bother.
space.
We don't have the space.
The store's bigger than the
So
lot.
let's not even talk about that. This is as large of, what Dean is proposing here, 30,000 square feet is the largest possible building, am I right, Dean, that could go on that site. So we don't need to be talking about a Walmart, Menards, Fleet Farm, or whatever. We've already got them. They're up on the hill. So you have a good question, but let's not bring in a Walmart.
No,
Because
I'm not.
that's not going to fit
No,
there.
my question was if.
What else would go there if it was a C3?
If we weren't talking about a grocery store, why would you want to make it a C3? Just assume Dean wasn't here yet, and the request says, I want to just make, I just bought the property, so I want to make it a C3 for a couple of reasons. Number one, a C3 is more valuable than a C2 because it has more options available to it. A C3 gives me a little broader potential in terms of my ability to buy the land, build something on it, and then market it. If I have an office building, and I can only rent office space, that's one type of business I could be in. If I build an office building and that doesn't fly, I can theoretically convert that. If I build a retail space and that doesn't work, I can convert that back to office space. And C3 gives me that flexibility to go back and forth. Okay.
He's already built, let's assume that he's built this one-story building, it's a grocery store, and playing out your scenario where the grocery store doesn't make it, he's still got a 26-foot tall building, as opposed to building a C2 building, which is a 45-foot building.
That's
and
true.
So what goes into that 26, I'm quoting Dean now, what goes into that building that's now only 26 feet high is going to be, it's single level, and it's going to be some retail where somebody will be able to sell bric-a-brac.
The meat market could be there,
Yep.
or it can't now. Specialty foods could be there, where they can't now.
You know, in contemplating this this decision, I called upon an old friend of mine, King Solomon. Unfortunately, he was busy. And this is not an easy decision for, I don't think, anybody who's sitting on this board. Because we've got a group out there who wants a grocery store. My wife happens to be one of them. And then we've got people out there who don't want a grocery store, and those happen to be the people who live adjacent to the property. But as I look at the map, and I think about where I built, and by the way, for those of you who think I'm a newbie here, it's only 29 plus years that I've been here. But as I look at that piece of property, what I see is a piece of fallow property along a trunk, a Wisconsin state trunk highway. And so I have to ask the question, when you built your house, yes, you're on a state highway here, and you've got a piece of fallow property across it, across the street. Is it always going to stay that way? And the answer is it couldn't possibly stay that way forever. It was conservancy because that's the way land is, and then it's changed from conservancy to a particular type of zoning so that it can be built upon. Every piece of property out there that is now a residence was at one time conservancy, and a builder, a contractor came in and petitioned the board to change it so that they could build their houses. Whether it was single family, duplex, multiple housing, makes no difference. They had to petition the board to change it. I do not see that all the fears that I documented 2 pages of fears, I don't think they're going to become a reality. If the worst case scenario is that we have to put a traffic light up there, so be it. Now we'll make it safe to cross the street. We have actually had controversy about whether or not we should stripe the street to show that it's a crosswalk. Okay, but it's a state highway. When I came to town and I was looking for property and I was looking for a house, I made sure that I purchased a house on the top of a hill away from the state highway. I happen to come from the most densely populated state in the United States. It's the 5th smallest state with the most miles of highway. It's a little tiny state called New Jersey. And when I came out here, I was amazed at how quiet everything was. I couldn't get used to it for the longest time. There's no noise. And I don't see that this grocery store, which is going to be serving the people of this community and the people who pass through it, is going to create any more noise than what we have currently with the row of taverns along the main drag. This is a state highway. Let's understand that. It's a state highway. Done. Next.
Well, I'm one of the people who did not move to North Hudson to a quiet neighborhood. I moved here because my husband's house was bigger than my house in St. Paul, and I thought we were moving back to St. Paul eventually. Obviously, that has not happened. And I was also one of the people who did not always pay attention to what was going on in the village. Not that I was unconcerned, it was just I wasn't that involved either until I was asked to be on the board. And now I'm thinking, what did I get myself into?
Now you're thinking St. Paul looks pretty good.
Yeah. Exactly. And I've toyed with this. I've been 100% sure one way, and then 100% sure the other way. I have friends who have said, vote against it. I've had people say, I'm for it. And my feeling is that it's going to be built no matter what we decide, and I think that a grocery store would be more community friendly and a better use of the property than another office building. The people have voted or said that they do want a grocery store. There's not any other place to put one, whether you call it a grocery store or market. I don't know if most people that filled out that survey had an opinion as to what the difference was, other than that it would be nice to have one. I noticed in one of the letters that was in today, they talked about that it'd be nice to meet the people in your community at the grocery store. I run into people up at County Market or Econo Foods that I know, but you know, how much nicer would you you'd run into a lot more people here that you know. I think it would get used. I think Dean has a very tough road ahead of him trying to please the Plan Commission again if we vote to not accept their recommendation, to take in consideration the residents that border that. And I think he is trying to do that. He has to come again to us for his permit in order to do this, so he's going to have to get into consideration all of the ecological, environmental, highway, and all of the ordinances that need to be followed. I also just found it reassuring how Jim mentioned the Glencoe had the same problem, and a year later, they're satisfied with it, and so I would hope that that would be the case with us too.
Any members of the board learn anything tonight about the
Larry,
difference?
please wait for 1 moment. He's got to change it.
Okay.
So what was your question? Did we learn anything?
He was kidding.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
I did.
What did you learn tonight?
Well, the way I look at it, you know, plus and minus. And so I'm looking at this from a, in terms of the people who voted for it, and I took some notes here. And you know, one thing is, one of the conclusions is a survey from the community said about 80% of the people, the population, want a grocery store. Didn't say this one, but want a grocery store. I think the other plus for the community is it does increase the tax base. You know, Lord knows we could use that. I think any community could.
I don't think that's actually real, just given these current state limitations.
Is that what's that?
Because the tax, you know, the levy can only go up by so much. So
Yeah.
I think we could add 100 of these suckers. Wouldn't do. I mean, we wouldn't have. It would add to the tax base.
Yeah.
But it gets diluted.
Yeah.
It
Sure.
It dilutes the value of everything.
Sure.
Else. So.
Sure. There's some it would offer some job opportunities for people in the area, and then obviously, and I think the reason for the survey, the overwhelming response that they needed a grocery store is really shopping convenience. We heard from a number of people here that, you know, it must be 6 miles up there from here, at least. So it's 12-mile round trip to go up there. It used to be 4 miles down to Erickson's or Econo Foods and back. So there's a shopping convenience.
It's 2.5 miles to the center of the bridge.
Okay. Okay. You know, one of my concerns was how much would the village have to pick up in property improvements and utilities and providing that in order to provide that space to be workable for Dean. And according to Dean, he says, you know, he would pick up all the costs for that. That's, to me, that's plus. It's certainly not a negative. I've heard about, you know, noise pollution. On the negative side, noise pollution, air pollution. Overwhelmingly, I think the people that have indicated to the negative on this side are people that live very close to that area. They surround that property, and there is housing, residential housing on 3 sides of that property. Then there's the issue of if we rezoned it C3, it could be used as any commercial. You know, anything could go in there, and I keep thinking, you know, grocery store in my mind is not such a bad idea for that location. I'm just talking now. I'm not saying that I'm either for or against moving it to C3, but I don't know that I would like a Burger King or something else there. I don't. It seems to me those kind of things, or another big Freedom Station or a Super America or something like that there. To me, I think that you know, those might have even more traffic, but I don't know. That's just me talking. I don't know for sure. And then we have the Plan Commission that overwhelmingly, a vote of what, 4 to 1, 5 to 1, voted not to move it to C3. And I think one of the objections that the people have, they said, you know, when I moved out here and live across the street or whatever it is, I assumed that was going to be C2, and now you're moving it to C3. So there are people that are concerned about their property values, or people concerned about, you know, noise and that sort of thing, and I think we have to listen to that. You know, I don't know. you know, it was really interesting about your comment about the Glencoe grocery store. And if I look at that over there, it really does look like, to me, that it really butts up against everything else around it. You know, the highway on one side, the old drainage ditch or on the south side, and then Station Lane on the north, and then the houses in the back. It really takes up a lot of that property. And, you know, we did talk about perhaps getting the variance on some people's property if you wanted to take C3 property that was across the street and say, hey, how about, you know, fewer parking spaces would be required. And I guess my take on it is if that building could be put there so that could really be bermed and people in the back wouldn't see it, wouldn't know it to be there. You're talking about one truck a day, I think, if I'm reading you right, more or less. For
one semi.
One semi.
Yes.
Not, yeah, I understand you could have some straight jobs in and out of there. But, you know, if I saw a different plan for a grocery store there that wouldn't reach out to the boundaries of that property so much, that could be more insulated from the rest of the community, I'd probably be a little bit more supportive of it. But, and I'm not an architect, I'm not a designer, I'm just, you know, some guy on the board. But, you know, is there some way that we can make this a win-win for everybody? That's all I'm saying. Is there a way to change that so it would not be so objectionable to the people that live right next to it? And so, you know, and people could get the grocery store. You could have a business there. And, you know, is there a way of changing that somehow? That's all I'm saying. That's the thought that I've had. I don't know if it's possible, but it's the thought that I have. So I'm not saying one way or the other. If I saw a different plan, you know, I'm just talking off the top of my head based on what I saw tonight. You know, there's for and against it. There's people that live right next to it and that don't want it, and for good reason. There's a lot of people in the community who say, hey, I'd really like a grocery store. And, you know, I would too. I think it'd be a good idea. You know, the village doesn't pick up, it looks like, any of the improvement costs. That's good. But how can we make this win-win? And so we don't divide the community. That would be what I'd like to see. Don't know how you do that. And that's not good leadership, I guess. That's chickening out, I guess. But I'm good at chickening out. Anybody else want to step up and embarrass themselves?
No, we're gonna leave you hanging
Nicely
there.
No,
put.
that'd be good.
Yeah.
Did you like the dance?
Kevin Lawrence, just a question. In the C2,
Yes.
the maximum height for a building is what height?
45.
45.
45. And in C3, it's 26.
No, it's 35.
35.
He's,
A difference
Dean's,
of 10 feet.
Dean's willing to do it at 26.
So two towers in front make the 26 feet. Your actual roof line all through there is probably 22 and a half. The corners make 24. In that particular design. We can't change the design, it's just that particular design.
Mhm. I'm assuming that's really a rendering. I'm assuming.
Rendering, yes. Yeah. The footprint is something very viable.
Yeah.
But that's a rendering of how the front might look. You can have a front that's got roofs, you can have a front that's got eaves, you can have a front that's got towers, you can have a front that's got an awning all the way across it, you can
You have a front that could make,
hundreds of
you'd have a
fronts.
front that could look like little shops inside.
You can do all kinds of different things, you know, this is,
Right.
we have to start somewhere.
Sure, I understand. And then thank you
And we
very
made a mistake by starting somewhere, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, because everybody looks at that drawing and can't accept that, you know, where they're going.
Well-
And that's probably a mistake we made.
Probably a mistake with that, it has a tendency to look like the old strip mall concept.
Yeah, yeah.
Wh-
You can
which-
do all kinds of, I'm not against working on concepts at all, you know.
Larry, I had a question. You
I don't take
mentioned-
questions here.
I'm going to give it to you anyway. You talked about how, with the planning commission voting to recommend it not be changed, what is different for us? I was wondering if the chairman of the planning commission, I hate to put him on the spot, but if he would kind of give us in a nutshell, just a wrap-up of his feelings on why, if you want to. Because I think it is important that we take that into consideration.
Okay.
Thanks. I'm Michael Meiser, Chairman of the Planning Commission.
Okay.
And you've heard, and you've probably seen the minutes, and yes, the vote was 5-1 against recommending it. What I can tell you I got tonight, was there's a lot more detail. Again, we're looking at a zoning change, and we really weren't looking at the concept of a grocery store, because there's no guarantees. That being said, all we had was a picture of a store, just like you said. Maybe it's a mistake to have a picture, say, how can we make a zoning change based on a picture? We did mention at the very end that if for instance, if the board votes, if we would have recommended, and you approved, or if you approve against our recommendation, they still come back to us as a plan commission with a plan. And what I've heard tonight was a lot of things he's promised to do to help the people. I won't forget that. I wrote that all down. So really, what's the difference between then and now is, yeah, I've heard more detail. And so I'm looking at it more as, okay, if you put in a grocery store of a certain height with berms and trees and all that, and if it goes under and they put in a Best Buy, it's still going to be 26 feet tall with berms and trees. And so one of the gentlemen that spoke at the Plan Commission was associated with the Windbrook Apartments, and he said he wasn't for or against it. He says, consider our people, and that's what we'll be doing. So if you approve it and it comes back to Plan Commission with a plan, we get into much more details. We work with our engineer on the issues we talked about, and there's a lot of things the Plan Commission will be doing to ensure that it's the win-win situation you talked about. Any other questions?
Any other questions for Mike? Good, thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Well, on that point, though, I'm done, Mike. I was thinking the reason why I voted to not change the zoning before, the reason for my vote was that at that time, the Planning Commission hadn't finished its comprehensive plan. There were too many questions, and we were getting feedback that was pretty one-sided. The Planning Commission's original hearing had only notified the people who had land around the area. And since then, I've heard such a tide of opinion that opposes that. And I've heard Mr. Hanson say he will work with the people. He'll put up berms, he'll put up trees, and it sounds like pretty nice that he's going to put a lot into it. So I think one of the things that people said, and I apologize for my voice, I'm about to lose it. Yeah, the lighting, the trees. I talked to my husband, who's an electrical engineer, who does lighting, and he says there's great options out there that won't disturb the neighborhood, that will make it a win-win situation. And I guess at this point, I am very impressed that Mr. Hanson wants to invest in our community, and I want to echo what someone said, respect the village and what people are saying, and what I am hearing is that we should make the zoning change, we should support this. So that's my statement. I can't add much more.
Okay. Mark?
No, I voted 2 months ago to oppose the Planning Commission recommendation, and I'll do it again tonight. I don't have anything to offer. If anybody got a question, I'll be glad to answer, but
Well, certainly one of the things that I have found interesting is that when you compare, if you just look at that piece of that piece of land is just a chunk of land. If it's a C2, you could end up with a building basically almost the same size, 45 feet high, if I wanted to build it that high. I'm just assuming I bought it. if you convert it to a C3, which is a little, it means it's either gonna be office or retail, some type of retail. That's the difference, and that's the thing that I've been having difficulty with, getting anyone to tell me what's a C3.
Well, isn't the fact that if it's C2,
Yeah.
they could put a multifamily, and that's why the height variation between the
Not
two?
multifamily, multi-story.
Well,
It's two-story.
multifamily, and so then you would end up with a possible apartment building. So you would have a height, more of a height than normal commercials at the C3, does that,
No,
am I
there's
explaining
another-
that right? You couldn't have, if you're gonna say that it could be multifamily,
Why do you say family?
or,
Multi-level?
Multi-use. Use.
Two-story? No.
I have to look at it.
Okay.
So you're not talking about a C2 or C3? Right.
Right, but can't you put, you guys go ahead.
I mean, it's, you know, the question is, if we go to a C3, just from a pure zoning and land use perspective,
Gloria, 98-31. This is the page, and I think that's what you're looking for. District regulations, one family and two family residence districts. And then there's a listing there of the 3 different classifications of residences. It talks about one single family, two family, multiple, and so on. I'm not sure if that's what you were looking for, but there are certain height restrictions there where whether it's RS or RA or RD.
Okay.
Dean, what'd you say your anticipated hours would be?
Again, that becomes part of the conditional.
No, I understand that.
Grocery stores, it's certainly not gonna be a 24-hour operation up here because that's.
It won't work.
It won't work, you know. So you probably are looking at a 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning opening operation, probably closing at 9 o'clock at night. Those are logical hours and hours that you can run employees at and have employees.
And the semis you said would come how often?
Semis are designed according to our unloading hours. We give them the times they come. They don't come whenever they want to. In other words, whenever your stocking staff is ready to unload work, a semi, that would, as county market, that I talked about, at 7 o'clock in the morning, their semi comes and they unload it and stock shelves from 7 to 9.
Let me ask the question, 'cause I was trying to pick up on what you said before. You'd only have like one semi per week come in there?
Again, we use that as an estimate. County market, my question was, how many semis a day do you have?
Yeah.
They said we have 2 full semis a day, and then we have a pizza truck, a pop truck, a bread truck, and I can't remember what the other one, a chip truck or something. And that happens every day, 5 days a week.
Okay. So you're saying
Now,
you
we're
probably,
talking to be, we're not even,
Half
we're
that.
far less than half their size. Their new store is gonna be almost 80,000. And we know that they're the most popular shopping spot in town. And of course, so how many semis you get depends on how many sales you have. If we can sell 40,000 pounds of food a day, we're really happy.
okay. So you'd be looking at max one a day. Matter of fact, you probably would, you may not be getting semis.
Well, there could be every other day for this location.
See, I think you're off track here a little bit.
I am.
because
I am.
I mean, if you want to start counting the trucks that deliver things between Summer Street and Cratley Lane, you got the Budweiser, Miller, UPS, trucks in and out of the bank, trucks out in and out of Village Inn, Zappa Brothers, Tom Thumb, Polka Dot Dairy. They come and go on a regular basis all day long.
Good, thank you.
So I think it's a little unfair to isolate this traffic issue with this store, because regardless of what it is, it's gonna have some traffic with it. And I don't.
I'm just trying to get a
But the
feel for it.
question is how
That's
much. But the question is how much.
Yes,
Because
and I'm
that's,
just
that's
telling-
what a
yeah.
lot of people are concerned about.
Okay, and that's a fact, but if they pay attention to what's going on at the other places.
Sure.
It's been going on that
Yeah.
way for 20 years up and down that road.
So my question,
Around there, yes,
Could
it
I
is
ask-
on the other side of Tom Thumb, it is.
could I
Right
ask,
across the street it is.
could I ask one more question? I'm not
Yes,
sure that
yes,
you're
go
done.
ahead. All right,
I know you're in closed session, but I have one question in reference to the semis. They can only deliver those times. That's when it's be able to come into the building. But would those semis be able to park overnight there with their diesels running?
No.
Sleeping there?
No. That's not allowed anywhere in the village. That's already prohibited.
Dean, you talked about, and I think somebody talked about, I think it was you, and was it County Market had 28 cars at 7 o'clock?
I've been doing traffic on
Yeah.
the County Market every day.
Yeah.
Because I knew these questions are probably going to arise. And again, this morning, my count was 28 cars between 7 and 8 o'clock.
Okay.
At County Market. And at noon, they had 36 cars.
In the parking
In the parking lot.
Yeah.
At 4 or 5 o'clock at night, they have about 50 cars in the parking lot.
Okay.
That's the three
Okay.
major times. And if you go there during the rest of the day, you don't see probably 10, 12 cars.
Okay.
You're looking, if
What would you
If we had
anticipate?
300 cars a day, and we're open 10 hours, that would be 30 cars an hour. But if we had that much business, the county market isn't running that.
Okay. Well, you know, two things from that, I guess, is it seems like 175 parking places is not necessarily needed, is what I'm taking.
Well, it's 150 in that plan.
150, okay, 150
But
probably
that's the
isn't
city
needed.
code. It's
I know,
code.
I know, I'm just telling the rest of these guys.
Thanks, Joe.
When your code is set up.
I don't want to argue here.
When your code is set up, and I may make
Yeah.
an argument, is that.
I understand, no,
Traffic,
sure.
parking.
No, I understand. I understand what you're saying. I was just trying to get an idea of frequency, how many cars are going in and out of there, and probably hear comments, hey, we got just, you know, how many do we have at Mama Maria's on a Good Friday night? And, you know, other places along here. But I'm just trying to get an idea. The frequency of cars going in and out of there. If you have 50 cars, say, at 5 o'clock, my guess is, you know, in half an hour, they'd be out of there. I don't know how long it takes people to shop. But so you probably got 50 cars an hour,
Tom Thumb
maybe
has
more.
1,100 people go through it a day.
Okay.
My car count was
Okay.
270 cars at 8 o'clock at night in the village of North Hudson, and food and booze, parts, 270.
Okay, well, yeah, Tom Thumb probably doesn't take people that long to get in and out of
Yeah,
there,
it's a
so.
quicker turn, but
Yeah.
on the average, it's about 1,000
Yeah.
a day.
Okay,
Okay.
Larry, if I could just, we have to keep this on track, that this is really a zoning issue. This is not how many parking spots there are, this is not what's gonna happen. This is, will it remain C2 or will it go to C3?
All of these questions will also all apply to a C2.
All right.
The only difference is it would have become up under as a conditional use permit when it went to the plan commission. Every one of these issues.
The one common thread that as you read this comprehensive plan, all the way through it is the term harmony. And harmony, definition, a pleasing combination of elements that all benefit from. So we've got a situation here where we've got people that want to market, we've got people that want us as board members to be conscientious of their children, of their living arrangements, of everything else. I think Joe was hitting on it. The fact of the matter here is that in a small town, you have that harmony because you have a village board, you have the ability to vote, you have the ability to stand here and talk. And as Joe touched on, you know, I would possibly be positive to, you know, looking at a change in the parking if they wanted to have a few less spots, if it helped the neighbors out to give them a little more of a buffer space. This is not to be really talked about at this point, but this, as the village of North Hudson, has to be used when you define the term harmony. And with that, I guess it gets back to a zoning issue. So that's what I'll close with.
Okay. Right, in your, I'm getting ready to have us vote. If anybody else wants to comment, you certainly can. But in your board books, there should be both an original as well as a corrected document. It's called ordinance number 001-2007. Is that the right number?
It would be 01. They took it out, so it doesn't go on the
I thought we did like 207-0.
That's the resolution.
Oh, so this is right. So it's 01.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just making sure everybody's looking at the same document. That document is stated in the affirmative, which states that the board is approving the request for rezone, right? So I just want to make sure. The only reason I'm being a little bit careful is because I obviously read the minutes from the Plan Commission. Okay. So, you know, whoever makes the motion, it is in the affirmative to adopt the ordinance rezoning the property in question from a C2 to a C3. My only final closing comments are going to be, I came in here tonight absolutely convinced I was going to vote no. We're not going to do this. And the reason is very simple. I don't want to see a C, I didn't want to see a C3 in what's surrounded by 3 residential areas. That was my whole premise. I don't care what it was. Grocery store, whatever. But I learned a couple things tonight. Number one, you can put something you can put things more offensive in the C2. Something which is the C2, which is even more offensive. Than I realized. I would not like to see a 45-foot building in there. Now I've heard some things tonight from Dean that, believe me, we're going to follow through on, because there's a huge amount of trust being associated, I think, tonight with this vote.
I opened my mouth.
Okay. And we heard you. Duly recorded. So that's all I'm going to say. And I happen to echo the other ones, which is, in a lot of those, we're dealing with what were going to be the issues from the residents, especially the ones close by. And I also sensed you almost trying to try and respond to each one of those kinds of issues. Because we're going to do that if we do this. So with that, if someone would like to make a motion to adopt, is this right, Thomas? I'm just going to draft. Adopt ordinance number 01-2007. That would then say that we would move it from a C2 to a C3.
I'll move to adopt.
Okay. I'll second that.
Basically, Larry, we're talking about the last line on the first page where it says, now therefore be it ordained that the following described real property is hereby rezoned from C2 limited commercial district to C3 general commercial district. Is it necessary, I'm asking Tom now, is it necessary for us to read this into the minutes, or is it satisfactory to?
That's fine. What the motion he's proposing is fine. It's adopting this as it's printed.
Thank you.
Okay.
So my question is in terms of what happens next, if this goes through. And if it goes through, then we still have the Plan Commission to fall back on that says you have to bring a plan.
A lot of work to do.
Yeah.
No, but I just want to make darn sure that we're covered here and that I'm covered in my own mind, that if we say C3, that doesn't mean that anything can go into this piece of property. It still has to be approved by the Plan Commission, and then the board also approves it.
Could take it on.
Conditional use permit.
Yep.
So not only for what it's used for, but you know, we could have 7 architects that don't like it. And we could have 5 on the Plan Commission, and everybody's got a better idea. And all I'm saying is if we do approve this, you know, there's going to be, I can think of about 13 people that are part of the Plan Commission and part of this board and others, and our engineer over here that are going to be looking at that with a microscope. And as to does this really make sense for the community? And I just want to make sure that indeed is going to happen. That if we vote C3, that we're going to follow through with that kind of intensity in terms of planning for this community, because this is a sensitive issue among the community and particularly among the people that live next to it. And I don't want their property values to go down a nickel because somebody moves next door. I don't want traffic issues to change dramatically where people say, boy, I wished I wouldn't have moved here. now that we got this grocery store here, I want everybody to feel like, hey, you know what? This is kind of nice. But knowing that that's not going to happen 100% in the village, I just want to make sure that the board and everybody else is looking at this with a microscope and thinking about, if I live next to it, what would I think? Because that's the issue among the people that are negative.
Sure. But at the same time, we do have to be realistic with Dean's development future, and you can't stop everything. Maybe this isn't the time, but is this a time where you put like an ad hoc committee together to sort of get information back and forth?
Trust me, I just finished a building. There's enough ordinances in place to keep track of everything. I don't think he's gonna run amok. And just one last note, these discussions have followed just about, I think they followed the Mama Maria building, the Riverbank building, Ardell's building. I'm not anticipating the end of the world here.
Is this?
And would I do it if I lived next door? Absolutely, without a doubt.
This is
I
probably
would.
one of the biggest.
And if you don't know me, you don't know me, because I would.
You would what?
I'd do it if I lived next door. I'd vote the same way.
Okay.
Because I'll be honest with you, and I was telling George this one time, it's in my best interest not to vote for this, because it makes my property more valuable.
Explain that, because I know.
Where Zappa Brothers is sitting. It's not always going to be an excavating company there. And there's more than enough room there between there and the corner. But the way things move up here so slowly, if you have somebody interested, I mean, it's funny when I hear people talk about Best Buy coming here and that stuff. Let me tell you, from somebody who tries to run businesses up here, it ain't going to happen. I wish him the best. I hope enough people patronize it so he can stay there. I'm real skeptical about it. Because the same people that say, oh yeah, I would love to have a grocery store, they're going to go up on the hill if bananas are a nickel a pound cheaper. It's I want a hardware store too. Yeah, right. I don't see you putting investing in it. As far as it being the end, any building there is going to change the disposition of that. The bank's a nice addition. Mama Maria's has been up there. That was Conservancy. And the Conservancy was simply because they didn't know what else to do with the land at the time. And the surrounding area got developed because there was some interest in it. Those townhomes, like the Village Inn, the houses all around there. That should have been all commercial instead of houses, but there was no interest in it. There's houses that built around Zappa Brothers property, because that was there first, and they built next to it. And they seem we don't get many complaints from them. And that kind of activity is a lot rougher than a grocery store. So, I mean, there's all sorts of different situations, but people do accommodate it, and life goes on. You can talk to the people on the west side of Zappa Brothers. It's not that huge an issue to them.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded.
Right. Since this is an ordinance change or resolution, now we need a roll call. So I'll start the roll call. Start here with Mark. Yeah, we have a motion in a second. Mark's got the motion, Sanders got the second. The motion is to adopt resolution 01-2007, which will change it from a C2 to a C3. So a yes vote says yes, we will change it. So start with Mark.
Yes.
Colleen?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Larry, yes. Sandra?
Yes.
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
So, there we go. Okay, and the motion's passed. It is a C3. All right, we've got, is Mike still here?
Thank you very much.
Good luck, lad.
Well,
See you, Bill.
I think the bottom line is
Thanks for being brief.
Dean is in a situation, he's going to put something out there to the same effect.
If we don't have a lot of discussion, folks, we can really zip.
I'm not kidding you, when I walked into this.
Gonna have to slide through this.
Well, I'll tell you, they can't say it actually, it's
Tons when we're having
I know, the stress, yeah.
Funny how that
Oh, man, I'm telling you, I wouldn't prescribe it.
I want to tell you, my biggest concern tonight was,
And it was beige, it was like a
okay?
center with some
She distracts
contrast. I drove around the back, there was one
So thank you.
container. Everything was enclosed, everything was taken care of. It was neat.
Just in the interest of time, we'll just get going. Plan Commission, Mike?
Yeah, now I understand. Thank you, Gloria.
But that's the reason you have such a big difference between.
Yeah.
All right, Plan Commission is next on the agenda.
Okay.
And we have one item there that, which is not related to land. And let's see, there's a Plan Commission recommendation to approve a conditional use permit change for, I just put my page, for Kempo Goju Karate. Changes of hours, approvals requested. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the Plan Commission recommendation.
I'll move.
Second.
Did Mike want to address this? Did you want to talk to this?
Just going to say that was the most straightforward change we've ever had. All he wanted was a change of hours. Nothing else changed, same owner. Everything else was the same.
Okay. All in favor of accepting the Plan Commission's recommendation to change the conditional use permit, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay. Anything else from the Plan Commission?
We had the extraterritorial CSM application of David Hart, and what we voted on doing was we told him to come back when he finalized all his plans with his local governments. And he understood that. So that'll eventually come. We had a little thing on a rezoning petition. We talked about that earlier. I go through the minutes. There is one thing that came up in our routine business I'd like to suggest, and it's in our condition. It's in our comprehensive plan, and after we were done with the public hearing and all that, Attorney Radozovich asked us for any of the specific building design standards that we referred to in our condition, in our comprehensive plan. And what it said in the plan is we should develop those. So we don't have them. And so what we'd like to ask you is if you would permit us or direct us to start working on that, on working on creating village design standards. Right now, we don't really know where we would start, or if we need.
No.
Can't do a motion, no, but same token.
We could put
If
it.
that was a part of the comprehensive plan that you were going to do.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I'd like to ask this, because I was there, Mike, as you
Yes.
know, and I heard that. And it concerns me a little bit because how, would there be a model that we could look at? I say a model, what I'm referring to, some other community that might have this already. I can't see reinventing the wheel if it's already been done.
Tom's
first of
shaking
all.
his head, yes.
The other thing is, I wonder if that would saddle us with something that, if it's too strict, boxes us into a corner. And my third comment on this is we are now wrestling with a floor plan for the addition to this building. If there were design standards, it would have been nice to have had them by now so that this building could conform to them.
Right.
And so I'm concerned that we could build an addition and reface the front of this building that would then not be in conformance with a plan that hasn't been written. You understand my dilemma.
How would it benefit us if we had them?
If we had standards, when he came in with a picture of the grocery store,
Yeah.
it might have red brick on it, or it might have a certain theme. I come from a small town on Lake Michigan, and there the city requires everything to have a nautical theme. Even the Dairy Queen doesn't have a red roof; it has a brown roof because it fits in with the theme of the community.
So
It doesn't have to be overly restrictive, but it just kind of. You heard enough people mention about the small town charm and all
I'll
this.
tell you what, why don't you guys get together, come up with a theme and then ask again. Right now, I'd have to say no. I don't know what theme we're talking about up here. There isn't enough building to get into it.
And maybe it's not
and
even
it's restrictive
that much.
enough. We just witnessed how restrictive it is up here.
Right.
One more set of rules, man.
What
There ain't
we
that
were
much
thinking
happening
is,
up here.
what we were thinking is just what you said. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. Is there something general out there that we can look at?
No.
Thought I heard a yes
You're
earlier.
doing just a fine job keeping everybody down. So, I mean, you know, if you're looking for other things to do, you know, come to us with an idea if you have a theme. I'm not sure I know what you're talking about. I don't know. Give me an idea. What theme do you want? I kind of used a railroad theme for the
He's
building.
not talking about a
That's
theme, he's talking
exactly
about,
what people have been
he's talking
brought
about
up.
design standards.
Yeah, I
The
know.
railroad.
But
what
give
comes
us
to
a
my mind.
specific, because Woodbury has a very expensive design package.
And so does Maple Grove and other
Yeah.
towns. Yeah, we're not looking at that.
No,
We're
I know where
looking
you
at-
come from, Mike. I'm not shooting
Yeah.
it just at you. I'm just talking about the planning commission in general and my lack of interest in what they do.
And I'm not so sure that you'd be able to have that done in time for this grocery store.
Well, and that's okay, but I'm just trying to think of, how does it make anybody's job easier? Does it make people's job easier
Do you have some
or
of those?
harder? Whether you're part of the village
Mary
or
Beth
if you're
had
a
mentioned
developer
that.
coming in, does it make it harder or easier?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I think
We'll
as
get
a
to some
developer, it would
kind
make it a little easier.
Okay,
He would know.
good. Just something you can help us with. We appreciate that.
I want to say something. Are you done?
Yes, I'm
Just
done.
say that
I just want,
it-
I want to thank both you and Paul as members of the Plan Commission. You didn't have, I don't think you were getting this, you did not get the same information at your Plan Commission meeting that we got tonight.
Correct.
From,
That's correct.
from him, in terms of making that decision. And
Well,
I-
I think
I-
the reason was, and excuse me, is just
Well, I
because of
understand.
the communication from the residents, because they all expressed concern about the buffer, and he didn't address that at your meeting.
That's correct.
And I'm aware of
And
that.
he did tonight,
And I
which
know
was
that,
good.
but my point is, there's a Plan Commission that voted 5-1 that says, no, we're not going to bless this recommendation to rezone. And you got a board flips them, and the general rule, that's about the last thing on the planet that I'm ever going to do is reverse a Plan Commission recommendation.
Agreed, yeah.
And for a whole lot of reasons, 7 I can name. I think you guys did an absolutely superlative job at that meeting. Absolutely superlative job. And I just want to compliment you for that.
I think what you stated earlier about you've got a microscope, we've got a microscope, we've got some commitments, for lack of a better word, and we'll work on it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Finance Committee.
Everything's gonna look like mud and suds from here on out in North Hudson.
Sweet.
We passed an ordinance while you were gone, Mark?
Great.
Boy, did you leave at the
I
wrong
like
time.
your design so much.
You're gonna have to get
Okay.
bigger screen TVs, though, that's.
Finance Committee for claims, Chair would entertain a motion to pay our bills.
Move to approve the February non-recurring claims totaling $24,915.27.
I'll second.
Thank you very much, Joe. All, let's see,
Roll call.
I gotta do a roll call here. We'll start over right here. Jim?
Yes.
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 Okay, yes.
Yes.
Mark? Colleen?
Yes.
Yes.
Larry, yes. 0, resolution,
You want me to make the motion? I move that we adopt resolution number 2007-01. It's a resolution establishing procedures relating to compliance with reimbursement bond regulations under the Internal Revenue Code.
For a second?
Second.
It is.
Jim did, okay.
Do we want to have a brief explanation before
Brief
we vote?
explanation by Gloria. 15 seconds or less.
Done.
Well, we wanna go home.
Basically, what it's gonna allow me to do is that in the interim, before there's a loan commitment, we may have some bills that come due on the for the building. It will allow me to have the board's approval to use funds out of the general fund to pay those bills, and then once we get the loan, to reimburse that. Because I believe there's some type of state statute that says you cannot, if you don't pass this, I can't reimburse the general fund.
Is there some kind of cap on this, or not necessarily? $1 million.
Are you trying to take my Bermuda trip away from me?
Yeah, the cap is this general fund. And there's not a lot, there's not a lot of undesignated in there. She,
If I can say this, if we do not pass this tonight, Gloria can't pay any bills relating to the addition.
Well, I would move that we
already
pass
did.
item number 10.
All right, this is a resolution, so we gotta do a roll call. Start over here with Mark.
Yes.
Colleen.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Jim.
Yes.
Sandra.
Yes.
Larry, yes. Okay.
Yeah, I call it 10:50.
Let's see, we paid the bills, took care of the resolution. Public Works. Was that an, go ahead, Joe.
You want me to go ahead?
Yeah, we're there.
Okay. Chair update. You can read the meeting minutes.
Did that.
Thank you. There is two things I guess I want to talk about. The first being the tree removal contract. Our contract with St. Croix Tree Service expired December of 2006, so we no longer have a contract with them. In looking at what contract we had with them, I think it was dated 1999 or 1996 or something like that. And the essence of it is they haven't increased their rates with us for something like 12 years.
That's right.
It's like $100 a tree and $20 a stump, and they want to go to $40 a stump and $175 a tree. You know, we could go out and rebid it, something like that, but I mean, we've been doing business with these people for umpteen years, and so my recommendation, because we didn't have a contract at our Public Works meeting, we have not talked about this specific contract, but I think we need one. I don't think it's a big deal, and so my recommendation is to approve the contract that you see in front of you for tree and stump removal with St. Croix Tree Service.
Who is our village for, by the way, the motion was
Mike
made second.
Eggers.
Who's the village forester?
Ekblad.
Eggers.
Oh, or whoever.
Eggers?
Doesn't matter.
I didn't know we
Village
had.
Forester.
You have a motion and a second.
Roll call vote?
Joe made the motion.
I second.
Okay.
City Hudson uses them at the same rate.
Let's see. Yeah, we probably should. Start over.
Yes.
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 Okay.
Done. Okay.
Or
All right,
C
public
for our
safety?
I'm not
Spanish
done.
friends.
Oh.
I'm not
Joe.
done. I'm not done. I still have the floor. Ting.
You're gonna be on the floor pretty soon.
Thank you. Duly noted. We've been talking about St. Croix Station, Summers Landing, road repair. We've talked about that an issue, and I don't want to talk about this in nauseam this evening.
Thank you.
All I'm saying is we looked at it again. Kevin was nice enough to go through and look at 5 really rough spots there that should be repaired, and it was going to cost like $42,000 to do it. It cuts up the property. I mean, it cuts up the street a lot, and then, you know, we can't. They do not recommend, either the engineer or Mark Ekblad or any of the contractors, that we should even go seal coat that area. So we're saying, you know, we would be fooling around with that area every year to the tune of $50,000 for the next, I don't know how many
Until it's
years.
done.
And then, or until it's done, and then you'd end up with all sorts of cuts and bumps and who knows what's out there. That's not the effective way. Obviously, at issue with us is the referendum process that we have. But at the same time, I don't think that this board can not maintain the utilities that we have in place in the village. I think we are not doing our job. So we have a referendum issue. We have, you know, we don't like what we've seen so far as an alternative, so we've asked Kevin to go back and perhaps look at doing a longer street for maybe a little bit more money, and seeing what we're getting out from the contracts that are being let lately for asphalt, because things have perhaps changed since last fall. Maybe they've gotten cheaper, although I know the price of oil, who knows.
Bottom line is, we're gonna be doing something to that road, one way or the other.
Yeah.
Good.
And we don't know what that is, but we'll let you know.
Isn't the real question,
After
how
we're
much
done.
could we do for $125,000?
No.
Tell us more.
No.
Yep. You'll like it.
It means we need to fix it, because we need to provide that service to the people that live out there. And we have a referendum process that is somewhat restrictive, so we need to figure out what we're gonna do. And we have not come up with a good solution yet, and I'm gonna be done talking about it in a couple of months.
Okay.
And I'll be done talking about that right
When you
now.
sober up,
And I'm done.
maybe it'll come up.
Thank
with
you
a
very
better
much
idea.
for moving us on.
Public safety?
Well put again. I see the chief is here, so he can add to or edit anything that I have to say here. I'd just like to draw your attention to the fact that Officer Jeff Williams has since left the building.
Like Elvis?
Right. And a comment that Chief made to me today, wasn't it? You were telling me what the chief over in Hudson said? Was that yesterday? Thank you very much for that well-trained officer. He was really impressed.
Echoed by the City of Hudson mayor to me today.
Really?
Can we send him a bill?
Can we move on?
I did.
Recruitment and
I told him it's also perpetual, so you'll be getting a check from the City of Hudson every month from now on. forever.
Royalties?
And because of the hour, I would the reason that I mentioned that Officer Jeff Williams has left is that's the lead-in to the issue statement that you see. It's the last page of the public safety section. And what we need to do is authorize the chief to replace him. So I'll make the motion, and then after a second, perhaps the chief can elaborate if you need some fill-in after you read over the issue statement again. Move to authorize the North Hudson Police Chief to fill a vacant patrol officer position on or after April 1st, 2007.
Second.
Okay. Any questions?
All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank
We
you.
don't need a roll call on that, just
Nope.
as a
Yeah.
point of order.
You hung around till 10 o'clock for that,
Hey,
Mark.
what a guy. What a
What
guy.
a guy.
I thought he was here for crowd control.
He was.
Clarifying.
I'm done.
Village, anything on the Village Hall Edition remodel update?
Oh,
That's-
okay.
You don't have to burden us with details if you don't want to.
I'll just tell you that the BMC each week gets
Love
a
saying that.
tweaked
Pretty
version
good guy.
of the floor plan, and I think we're really close. Do you agree, Gloria?
I'm
I-
a woman, are you kidding?
I think we're really
There's
close.
a point in time when you take it away.
Yep,
Hey,
I've been there, done that.
9:58.
Let's see. Looking, all right, public welfare?
The public welfare chair was lax in her duties and did not.
Again?
Well, I was very busy spending time on a beach chair in the Caribbean, and I forgot to get my meeting notice in on time.
Okay.
So we will be well prepared for an April meeting.
Very good. Park Board,
I think she deserves an award for taking less than 1 minute to give her update.
I know, and that was even.
You could have
thrown
said
out.
no report.
Park board, you can just read the minutes. Then we also talked, or the intergovernmental meeting I went to, there wasn't a lot going on.
Surprise,
The county talked about the library and school district with the new building and that, so.
a week or so ago when Gloria and I were putting together the agenda, I thought I had to make it, I thought I needed a nomination for the police commissioner to replace somebody, but we did not.
Didn't I?
So, skip that.
Huh?
April board meeting change date,
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
because we'll have elections in April. So,
My campaign
look at your calendars at the end of the book.
You're
I
talking
thought I
March
had that
26th.
someplace. How come I
You want a
don't-
motion?
Oh, here it is.
Or March 27th, isn't it?
I told her to put that on the
We
27th.
still have that $25,000 cap for campaign funds?
Pardon?
How much can I solicit?
You don't want to go there.
Yeah, after tonight, we might have opposition next year.
Exactly right.
Please.
Yeah, absolutely. That was some threat not electing you. Jeez, why you
Hey,
can't be with
hey,
the
I
knife?
didn't even run, and I got elected.
God.
Okay.
All right, when do we want to meet?
27th? I'm just looking at, is that,
That's where it was supposed to
yeah,
be.
Okay.
that's what I figured.
March 27th, 6:30 and 7, Finance and Board.
6:30?
Or 6.
Or 6, I'm sorry.
March 27th for the April board meeting.
Board meeting.
We always do it.
And that's usually a pretty quick meeting. We try not to do anything of great significance there. Unless you want to do kind of like your last grand hurrah.
Behind me.
I'm gonna also request that you, schedule the reorg meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, in April?
Yeah.
Every year, doesn't it? So then we've got the first Tuesday of
Oh, wait a
April.
second.
24th.
No, you're
right.
That's there.
Yeah.
And so then-
That would have been down here, just moved up a week.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm looking at that
Oh,
right.
okay.
So we don't have a board meeting in April.
April. Okay. Ah,
Oh.
Thank you.
they should
I
have
just tentatively
blown
put
a
it
horn
for
or
the
something, so we
24th,
flip
I like
because
it.
it needs to be
It'll
after
be-
the third Monday in
Yeah.
April.
All right, what's been suggested is April 24 would be the reorg, the annual reorg meeting. That's the meeting that has to occur between the April election and the first meeting in April, May.
Looks like the 24th.
It's a real short meeting.
Okay.
But by the same token, I mean, like the first year that I was village president, it was a nightmare because there was just a whole bunch of openings on all the committees and stuff. And I didn't realize I had to name people to all that stuff.
That's why your wife was on 6 of them?
Yep. Yep. Still is too. by the way. Yeah. Go out and sleep in the garage. So the 24th, how's that work for people?
Sure.
All right, done. Good job on that, Cory.
24th of April?
24th of
Yeah,
April.
you know.
It's a real short meeting. It probably takes usually no more than about 15 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, and what time is this?
Just depends on how much
Oh,
talking Mark
what
does.
time is it, 7?
Regular, well, does it?
Or do you
It
wanna
doesn't
do
need, it
Oh,
does
yeah,
not
he
need to
loves
be.
talking public
But
works.
could we do it earlier for
Yes.
some of the people that have to sit around here?
Mark,
and
do you want to
wait
pick a
the
time
damn
for this
thing?
meeting?
6 o'clock.
Can we do it earlier than 6?
I usually don't like to get too far beyond that, because then it starts to look like we're trying to have meetings where people can't even attend if they wanted to.
It's a reorg.
A reorg meeting?
5 o'clock?
That'd be good.
4, 3, 2,
You
1?
talking in the morning?
I like 5. I heard 5.
Kathy, you okay with 5?
Works for
Thank
me.
you.
I'll make it or not, but
It's really
if
short.
it's just a 15-minute meeting.
You wouldn't even have to be here very
No.
honestly.
Okay, put it,
Well,
we'll
why
do it
not-
for 5 and I'll try.
No, let's
Just give her the
establish this
tape.
now. Does Kathy need to be at the reorg meeting?
I would say not. I mean, there are
Then-
minimal minutes.
Yeah, so,
We'll just
Just
put it
give her
on
the tape.
I mean, there's gonna be like 3 motions.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because as long as he has his list.
That's it. We approve the list of everybody who's been appointed, everything. That's about as formal as we get. Here's the document.
You done good.
We do the line of succession and the
Did I
banks.
miss any, did
That's
I
it.
not offend anybody tonight? Did I miss somebody to offend?
What are you worried about?
Still have an opportunity. We
No,
haven't-
you were perfectly
Okay,
offensive.
let's.
Thank you.
Are there any other items of information?
Oh,
If not,
There's a move, there's a
Mark got a move there. Is
Sec.
there a
Who made the
second to that?
motion? Who made the motion? You made the motion?
no, Mark,
Traditional motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Everybody else go home.
Thank you.
we.
Wait a minute, I was supposed to ask Mark a question. What was it?
is he coming?